Yes, job people, this is Michael Shamai representing. I will say, hear the lion voice, saying it is time for the lions and the lionesses to tell their own story. King David killed Goliath with a stone, we original dread.
The fittest of the fittest shall survive. My people, open your eyes. Wake up. Blessed love, this is Queen Omega representing for all lions and lionesses. With the lion's voice, we come to tell our story. Ras Tafari, live it. Hey, the lion's voice, Ras Tafari.
Well, lion voice, tell them that's the people first choice. Lion voice, make the lioness them feel nice. Lion voice, with the lion cubs we sacrifice. Lion voice, got to show the people them the life. Lion voice. Yeah, and it's last said the first of the Almighty. Well, there are set thrones of judgment to judgment. Thrones of the house of the great King David. And I shall pray for the peace of Ethiopia and Africa. Yeah. Well, every night, argument, morning come. Sorry about an argument. No make your heart get hard like some sweat cement. Black woman got to exercise patience. Every night, argument, morning come. Sorry about an argument. No make your heart get hard like some sweat cement. Black man got to exercise patience. Got to change the frequency. Seems like we disagree frequently. Mama shopping spree interfere with school fee. Daddy they a dance a floss for Hennessy. Every night them fight mostly over money. Who gonna stand up fight for the family? Haile Selassie, might of the Trinity. Crown with his queen with a baby in her belly. Still every night
This is Michael Shamai representing. I will say, hear the lion voice, saying it is time for the lions and the lionesses to tell their own story. King David killed Goliath with a stone, we original dread.
The fittest of the fittest shall survive. My people, open your eyes. Wake up. Blessed love, this is Queen Omega representing for all lions and lionesses. With the lion's voice, we come to tell our story. Rastafari, live it. Hey, the lion's voice, Rastafari.
well, lion voice, tell them that's the people first choice. Lion voice, make the lioness them feel nice. Lion voice, with the lion cubs we sacrifice. Lion voice, got to show the people them the life. Lion voice. Yeah, and it's last said the first of the Almighty. Well, there are set thrones of judgment to judgment. Thrones of the house of the great King David. And I shall pray for the peace of Ethiopia and Africa. Yeah. Well, every night, argument, morning come. Sorry about an argument. No make your heart get hard like some sweat cement. Black woman got to exercise patience. Every night, argument, morning come. Sorry about an argument. No make your heart get hard like some sweat cement. Black man got to exercise patience. Got to change the frequency. Seems like we disagree frequently. Mama shopping spree interfere with school fee. Daddy they a dance a floss for Hennessy. Every night them fight mostly over money. Who gonna stand up, fight for the family? Haile Selassie, might of the Trinity. Gone with his queen with a baby in her belly. Still, every night, argument. Morning come, sorry about a argument. Don't make your heart get hard like some sexy men. Black woman, got to exercise patience. Every night, argument. Morning come, sorry about a argument. Don't make your heart get hard like some sexy men. Black man, got to exercise patience. There's no need to raise your voice. Let's live in a one harmony. Together we can make that choice to live as one family. And please don't disturb the children's sleep. Be careful what you say, remember words cut deep. Sometimes it's better if you just sit in silence. Time to end this cycle of violence. Well then, every night, argument. Morning come, sorry about how you went. Now make your heart get hard like some sexy cement. Black woman, got to exercise patience. Greetings in that divine name of His Imperial Majesty, Emperor Haile Selassie I. Glory and honor in the name of his chosen queen, Empress Waziri Menen. My name is Kwasi Banso, aka the Chazmach Kwasi, aka Ras Kwasi, aka the Reading Ras, aka the Pan-African Happy Man. I'm a creative industry attorney, I'm an artist, I'm an author, I'm an actionist, and right now I am the host of the Lion Voice. Welcome to Lion Voice, and welcome to the Lion Voice Network, where we are having the lions and the lionesses tell our own story. We have a very special episode for the item. You know, we usually are pre-recorded on a Saturday, leading after the Sabbath. Today we have a special panel of international Rastafari scholars to discuss African liberation. And before I go any further, happy African Liberation Day. Oh, what a great day that must be
when Africa is free.
So yes, family, we're looking forward. We have a mighty episode. I have here Ramia King Design. I have to big up the sponsor, Ramia King Design. Big up yourself, Ras Lidge, the tumbler working. I have ice in there. It's going to stay cool the whole episode. So when you see I'm on a sip, it's a Rastafari business that is providing that tool for I and I. And big up CMAS Life, Ras Woolley, big up yourself. All of the Rastafari businesses out there. And remember, if you want to advertise your product, send us a correspondence, send us a comment, we'll follow up. This platform, I'm not just building for I and I self. This is Rastafari independent, non-aligned media. And I want to just big up the Lion Pride on Patreon. We have 15 fire angels from around the world that are investing financially in the platform. Big up all of the ones who see the vision of where we want to take this. It's our time. The Armageddon is upon us, and we have to control the narrative as Rastafari and Pan-African people. We can't be depending on third-party platforms to tell our story and to tell our narrative. We are in the great era of repatriation. The great return has begun. It might be a trickle. However, it has begun. The governments are recognizing the diaspora. Legislation has been proposed. There is movement back and forth. We are in this great time, and we have to have our own platforms to capture this narrative. And that's what we're doing here today. We're going to talk about the OAU, but we wanted this to be a forward-looking conversation, family. Meaning, what is our vision for Africa united and liberated? Because if we don't know where we're going, how do we attain that goal? We have to have these conversations. Okay. You know I'm long-winded, so I have to just keep myself. I'm excited, family, because we have some powerhouses. So just Lion Pride, help I to welcome. I'm going to get them to introduce themselves, but this is power, and this shows the potential of this platform, what we can do, bringing minds from across the seas, over land and sea, to discuss I and I affairs unapologetically. What a joy. So help I to welcome Lion Pride family, African Liberation Day Lion Voice panel. Please help I to welcome our elder from Trinidad, Bongo, Greece, our Queen Mother, hailing out of Jamaica, currently in the Cassava Peace, Queen Mother Moses, my legal brother, who is currently in South Africa, Ras Tafari. And then I have my professor, department chair type of person, Dr. Chinzira Mighty, African traveler, Nubian priestess, so much title. Then we have Dr. Walete, who I am very familiar as a Lion Pride member. I always draw for Dr. Walete because the intellect as a librarian, the research, we always learn some facts that we didn't know. So I always have to draw for I Sistren Lion Pride, again, contributor, Dr. Walete, my traveling partner too. So big up yourself, Dr. Walete. So I'm gonna just begin this conversation. Let us go historical first before we go futuristic. Let's set the bed for those who are watching from around the world. I'm gonna start with the Bongo Greece, and then we'll just go around. Give us the context, set the framework for this discussion in terms of why is May 25th so important? Why is this African Liberation Day? Why do we gather from the four corners of people of African descent on this day, Bongo Greece?
I, Selassie I, King Ras Tafari, Give thanks to all the esteemed brothers and sisters on the program this afternoon. I greet you in the Iwits of love. As the Swahili words say, Harambe. Today, Rastafari know it's the time of harvest on this occasion of the 61st anniversary of the Organization of African Unity. Today, when we look at the Organization of African Unity, we look at the context of what the organization is and what the organization is not. The Organization of African Unity from its inception in 1963 to now has made quite a lot of significant steps forward. And today, the Rastafari movement, certainly has to be the vanguard of our African liberation movement. As we celebrate it today, as Rastafari, we can no longer remain in our cocoon. When we look at the advancement, there are many Pan-Africanists. Where I come from, a country where the establishment of Marcus Garvey, the teachings and philosophy of Marcus Garvey, came to Trinidad and Tobago in 1919. And by 1920, there were 30 branches of the UNIA, even with Trinidadians having shares in the UNIA. And from there, the Pan-African movement and Pan-Africanists in Trinidad and Tobago became very vocal in terms of the liberation of Africa. Because when you look at the first Pan-African conference by a Trinidadian in London, Sylvester Williams, they made a significant contribution. When you look at the independence and liberation of Ghana under Kwame Nkrumah, you look at Malcolm Nurse, better known as George Padmore, and CLR James. They were both instrumental in the 1958 in setting up the committee that was leading to the organization of the Organization of African Unity. In 1958, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah was commissioned again by Haile Selassie for such of the African unity, the integration of African unity. because we must take into consideration that from that early point in time, there were two camps rivaling against each other, which was the Casablanca and the Monrovian. You know, His Majesty under the Moravian, and then you had the Casablanca. However, His Majesty bring forth these two camps together so that there can be a progressive transition towards African unity, and so it is that, from 1950 to the 1960, Kwame Nkrumah started a lot of meetings, and then it go from 58 to 63 when the final meeting of the Organization of African Unity were formed, where even on that particular day, when Brother Kwame launched his book, Africa Must Unite, and there were so many thoughtful introductions into it. I mean, we look at brothers like Signal Leopold. These fellas, although they had certain African consciousness, they were still kind of sell out under France. But however, in coming to as part of the Moravian group, the strategic plan of His Majesty of Haile Selassie I was the plan that came out victorious, at the end of the meeting of the Organization of African Unity, in which Brother Kwame Nkrumah fully accepted and dedicated the work of there. Because when you look at the Organization of African Unity, we take into consideration that the organization was the primary objective of the organization was to really foster and bring unity among states, among the different states, African states. And as such, it was a freely entered agreement. It took years after before, when you look at what happened in the meeting in terms of the OAU. I mean, I am not a lawyer, but within lawyers would look at the contractual agreement. What is the contractual agreement? How does traditional law come into practice into that whole aspect? Because after a while, a couple of years, you still see where the Leagues of Nations and the United Nations try to bring in certain principles long after the organization had formed pertaining to the assassinations, because we see with the development of the Organization of African Unity taking powerful root, there had been a lot of assassination of most of our brothers.
That's a key point. I'm going to ask you to stick a pin right there. I'm going to ask you to stick a pin because I want to get everyone involved in the. But we're going to touch a key point, because we're very hard on ourselves as African people, but a lot of time we don't take into consideration the ongoing war that we have been under, and we don't acknowledge it, and it doesn't make it go away. So Queen Mother Moses, African Liberation Day, talk to us and introduce yourself in any way you would like. Forgive I, introduce yourself in any way you would like as well, and just give us your initial thoughts on why this day is important and any historical significance. Yeah, it's muted, Queen Mother Moses. Hold on there.
Okay.
There we go.
Greetings again, African Liberation Day, my African Liberation frontline soldiers on the continent, in the 6th region, wherever you all are. I give thanks for the opportunity and the honor to be a part of this august and esteemed panel, because I and I are the frontline soldiers, frontline in that we, wherever we are, continue to be Africans. And that is a very important part of the entire story and process, that ones have to be African wherever they are. That identity component is so important, because anywhere the Chinese is born, even in Jamaica, we still call them Chinese. And anywhere the Indian is born, we still call them Indian. You overs. So I and I need to get to the point where when they ask, who are you? For me, I am an African born in Jamaica. That is very important to me. I have my African spirituality in my ankh, in my left ear close to my heart, and I have the Jamaican akoma. You understand the colors, and these colors are also part of my identity as an Ashanti. You know, it's the same color. So it's very important for us to tap into that who we are in the identity as we deal with African liberation and African day to day. So who am I? Yes. I am born right here in this village, Cassava Peace African Village. It is an African village, and the primary crop was cassava. You understand? My mother was the one that brought electricity to the village, and we are moving it up a different level. My great grandmother, you know, her house was too cool with it was mud floor. You over. So we've come a different, you know, on different stages in the generation. And I do have the seventh generation that is here in this village, matriarchal. That's my great granddaughter, right? And so I have been blessed to know my great grandmother in this village, my grandmother, my mother, myself, my daughter, my granddaughter, and my great granddaughter. And it is very important for me because I can be anywhere in the world. As I don't know, I have been declared the Empress Queen Mother. That means I work with queen mothers and paramount queen mothers and chiefs and kings and paramount kings and overlords throughout the continent. Okay, I am recognized at this time. I'm the only Empress Queen Mother, and we are working with the traditional governance and because that is even more important. Because like and my declaration was made by the cultural ambassador for Ghana out of the presidency office, the office of the presidency, because you know Ghana has invited I and I to come home. So they figured that that is the place to let the world know that they are recognizing the Rastafari Empress Queen Mother and wants her to work with the different queen mothers, kings, and paramount chiefs, etc., who I'm in touch with on a daily basis. And I tell him that no matter who wins the election when the year ends, he is still going to be king. Okay? No matter what political party gets into power, our traditional leaders on the continent are still the kings and the paramount kings, which of course, you know, the colonizers changed our titles of our kings to chief and, you know, our emperors to paramount chiefs. But we know what was behind that, because all they were really trying to say that they are the chief slave maintenance to keep the slaves in order. And they're beginning now because these are the conversations we are having. And they're beginning because the chiefdom and chieftaincy is a very important structure in the traditional governance. But they're beginning to accept this conversation because we do not want to continue the colonizers' language and what the colonizers have said. And so everyone will get a chance to introduce Elder Sifa. Blessed up my brethren, because you know Azania is the land of my repatriator as Empress Palesa. I have names that you know from different parts of the world, depending on where I've been initiated or who the husband is, because I marry into royal families for the royal families to accept the Rastafari faith. The two major traditional royal family in Ghana are the of course the Ashanti, the golden one, and the Dagomba. So husband number 3 was Dagomba, the son of the grandson of the Panalana, and they had not. They are primarily Muslim, so they had not, and the royal family had told the Panalana to disown him, but he wouldn't. And we give thanks through that marriage. After he did his Mecca, he came back, called me together with his children, grandchildren, etc., took off his traditional clothes, put it on me, and he put on Rastafari attire from head to toe to show that now the Rastafari faith is a accepted in the Dagomba family. And my current husband, number 4, is the son of an Ashanti king who is getting ready to be initiated into as a paramount, because he's not ready for that, because the 100-year-old paramount chief has passed. So I come to you, and I'm going to move on for others to get it. And I'm going to say what His Majesty said to Barbados, April, 1966. He said, representatives of the people and nations can only come together with open and objective minds and willing hearts to engage in dialogue without rigid dogmas and slogans and without violence. Working this way achieves no utopia. It may, however, enable us to achieve together what is possible to achieve and to move forward steadily, if not always in grace haste, with some degree of harmony and mutual overstanding. We say overstanding, the word, it was understanding here. But I know, because His Majesty has told us that it is up to I. We must become members of a new race, overcoming petty prejudice, owing our ultimate allegiance not to nations, and I put our to political parties, but to our fellow human being within the human community. And that is where we are now. As the Rastafari faith movement has become the vanguard of unity and standing up for those, because our anointed Christ, which is a title, Him save us from an identity of slavery to give us an identity of royalty. So in our household, we are the kings and queens, and our children are the prince and princesses. And this is the mentality and the mindset we want to give to our generation. For all these words in my introduction, I do give thanks, and the more will come out, because I do have all kinds of documents from the Rastafari Global Reasoning in 2003 at the University of the West Indies, where we made resolution for the Rastafari Global Secretariat. And this is even after we don't know about 1983 over, because we know it is very important to empower our African elders, because they are the foundation of community, living in common unity. Give thanks, blessed love. You may mute me while the others go on. Thank you.
Family, that was just Queen Mother Moses' intro, So I hope you have snacks. I hope you're well hydrated, because that was just an intro. We could do a whole documentary on this, the intro. But give thanks. My brother, we are talking at a time when South Africa is in the world spotlight. South Africa having taken the Israel nation to the International Criminal Court of Justice, which has just given a ruling, putting Africa at the fore of international law, and this discussion that His Majesty was so passionate about. I had to have someone from South Africa here. I didn't even know that was going to happen. And give thanks that the eye is an attorney as well, because I want to hear the eye thoughts on that whole thing later on. However, just please introduce yourself and talk about how important is this day for Rastafari and Africans on the continent. Give us a continental perspective. Hold on, you see what happened here, family? Just when the brethren is getting ready to talk, the thing gets sweet. The technology I rebel against it. We're going to keep it moving until the brethren come forward. I'm going to go to the island of St. Croix and to a sister that I really respect so highly in terms of her life journey. She is an elder with a youthful energy and vast knowledge, East and West Africa. And, I thought so valuable to this conversation when we're talking about history, because she teaches young people. I had the benefit along with Dr. Walete of presenting to her class, and just seeing how passionate her students were staying after class. You know that, as a professor, she's doing powerful work with our young people, and I really want to commend her publicly on the Lion Voice platform. You saw her interview, so she's an alumnus of this platform. But I wanted to thank her live publicly for allowing us to the space. Dr. Chinzira, please just give us, why is this day important, and what are your thoughts on this great day?
First and foremost, I really desire to give thanks and praise to the One Most High for just giving I the opportunity to be able to have this type of reasoning at a time like this. Not everyone, some persons are very comfortable with referring to African Liberation Day as just Africa Day. Like we're already free, everything's safe, everything perfect. And it's not everything safe, everybody cool, and definitely not perfection. So I'm very grateful that I and I are able to reason around African Liberation Day. And I always start at a space of spiritual attunement because I could speak about myself a lot, but I encourage persons put the name in the chat or put it in your Google Scholar specifically, and then you can get an idea of how I sit as a grandmother, a mother, as an archivist, not just an activist, but using art to be engaged. And specifically my tie as a griot, being able to bring like all the different story from everybody intergenerationally and across various platforms. African liberation is every day. May 25th is the highlight primarily because of what was actually established through various Pan-African Congresses that go as far back as the 1900s, early 1900s. And the progression facilitated the establishment of an all African Peoples Conference that was hosted in the same Ghana that we speak of now. As a matter of fact, at the same University of Ghana, December 1958. And from that humble space where there were only, at the time, less than a dozen countries that were actually independent, armed struggle, active struggle, liberation vibrations, pulling on the kingdoms of His Imperial Majesty and Her Imperial Majesty in Ethiopia as their grounding within other parts of the African continent. Then we moved in from 1958 to 1963, where it was formalized as no longer just April 15th is the day for African freedom, but it's African Liberation Day.
Can you give me a little bit more volume?
Of course.
Yes,
sometimes I don't have my country voice on all the time. I can hear my country voice. Yeah. 1963. So we really have this opportunity when we speak of. Do you desire for me to continue, or do you would like me to come
Yes,
close?
no, continue, and then we'll go forward to Ras Tafari.
All right, give thanks. So 1963 facilitated the time where African Liberation Day, again, by this time, over 30 different countries were now moving in that space of independence, complete sovereignty away from the former Eurasian colonizers. This is a time where this should be the liberation, like big, like long festival, parade, wherever our people need to see to be involved in the total liberation and unification of Africa. And Nkrumah said that. So I don't want to take claim to nothing like that. But when these terms come up, this vibration of Pan-Africanism, this vibration of using the rootical energy that Rastafari has been centripetal to, I want to make sure the persons get that. Can't talk about reparation and not deal with Rastafari. Can't talk about repatriation and not deal with Rastafari. Can't talk about homeschooling, natural education, items, down to the music. And we can go back to ska. Reggae, yeah, but I like to go like before, right? All of this is grounded in the same vibrational shift in information, teachings, wisdom teachings more specifically, coming out of Ethiopia, coming out of those East African spaces, traversing through the entire 12 million square miles of the continent of Africa as we know it today, to be able to have this celebration of African liberation. It's important that we recognize that it's also a day that's very revolutionary. Everything isn't just soft, soft, sweet, sweet. It's a time when we speak about the realities of capitalism and imperialism and all of the isms that are the talons, the fangs that interfere with our ancestral sacred traditions and our ancestral sovereignty in contemporary times. Make sure we're on the same page. So a lot of what my full strength is in this regard is not so much the professorial, the teaching piece, the university piece, because that's secondary to the spiritual essence.
Okay.
Pulling on that ancestral sacred tradition, on those ancestral traditional practices that we can bring up and bring into light, into liberty in this 21st century, that we're doing our utmost best to survive in. So I share this through the legacy of family traversed throughout the earth, from East Africa into South America, into the Caribbean and Central America, and even my stint being socialized in the 48 contiguous US. And I also bring this strength to my 101-year-old mother, who still walks the earth, pulls my ear once in a while, but still clear enough to give me guidance, to recognize the importance of having a liberated mind, body, soul, and spirit. So when I think of African liberation and the role that Rastafari will play in this new Africa, this new Africa, not just an African world, but I just gonna say the entire sovereign entity, it's eternal. And it's going to take work, and we stand ready. Give thanks.
Give thanks, give thanks. All right, we're going forward to the Ras Tafari. Just introduce thyself and why is this day important, and what is the vibration on the ground, on the continent on this day, to the eye sound.
Rastafari greetings, Sijambo Africa, Molweni, Sani Bonani, Absheni, Demadigwane Abuti. Very important greetings to say that from Accra, from Ghana to Tanzania to Azania, it is important for I to contextualize the African Liberation Day. That even in Azania, we can say we have made an impact as a Rastafari community, that now the governments and the state are starting to observe the African Liberation Month, not the African Liberation Day only. We've also picked up, like I said, to my elder Bongo Greece, passing my greetings to the empresses, Empress Queen Mother Moses, Palace at the Flower, Addis Ababa, Queen Mother also, we have connected many times. Mama Kaina, we still give thanks. Empress Walete, we still give thanks to come through in this session. Raskwasi, very important that we always talk about 1963, but we'll forget 1958 in Ghana, 15 April, the Africa Uhuru Day. There were only 8 African countries who were free that time, and Ethiopia was there. But 1963, there were 32. But 2002 in eThekwini, Durban, when we changed OAU to AU, there were already 54. So it is important that when we recall the teachings of His Majesty, reminding us in 1963 about Ama Gideon that has passed, that we are being reborn. We are also asserting our position, our authority in world affairs. So it is important for as we are reasoning. In Azania tomorrow, the government will be in Vilagasi Street, the famous street of Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela and Desmond Tutu. They are doing the celebration there. But within the Rastafari community, it's always chanting of Nyaya Bingi. Whenever we have celebration of Black Liberation Day. Remember, also you have Africa Liberation Day, Black Liberation Day. But what stands, it is that we have not come to the sense in Africa and globally to put this day as a public island day, as a public holiday, so that it can bring consciousness to our brothers and sisters, including the African diaspora as the sixth region. And in short, I think Aina will be able to can unpack today what does hold Aina back, why the ECOSOC, why diaspora in the AU has not been active, why the Rastafari community have been so stagnant on overstanding the geopolitics of Africa, the challenges we see in Congo, in Somalia, in Mozambique, many challenges that we see in the African continent, but also how do we use the teachings of His Majesty that we know very well that even the leaders of Africa, the former president of South Africa, Thabo Mbeki, often quoted Emperor Haile Selassie. Very important for INI to also know that the unity of Africa is one of the challenges that we are having. The challenges that we are facing is of unity, and we need to even emphasize the role of the mothers in this search for the unity, the role of our daughters, the role of our brethren or the youth in the Rastafari, but also how does Rastafari diplomacy overstand that we have a role to play in uniting Africa and the African living spora. So in short, I will say that we give thanks for this day, but we still need more to have this day as a public island day. And we still have to recall, as Bongo Greece was talking of the Pan-African Congress, the first of its kind. Today, I'm reminded of the one in 1974 in Tanzania. That is almost 50 years that the sixth Pan-African Congress in Tanzania of Walter Rodney, Ambassador Dudley Thompson, those who have played a key role also of bringing us together to can understand that the liberation of Africa is vital and is necessary. I give thanks.
Give thanks, family. Mighty, and we're going to return because I touched some points. Everyone touched points that we have to return to. If you have any questions, put your questions down in the comments. We have an esteemed Rastafari panel. We're going to go deep into African liberation because we want to create a cultural framework that allows us to have success as we return home and as we connect what's happening in the West to what's happening at home in the East. Dr. Walete, welcome forward once again to the Lion Voice. I know this is the I home. Please introduce the I self and
Yes.
Why is this day important to I and I?
Yes, I. Greetings and blessings. Dijas Match Kwasi, I countryman, Bongo Greece, Queen Mother Moses, Sifo. Yes, I. Dr. Chenzira, greetings and blessings on this African Liberation Day. Give thanks for the moments and give thanks for coming forward with the wise mind and the guidance for the people in this time. Yes, I am Dr. Willette Beresford. Ones and ones know I as a librarian, a researcher, and author, and currently I seat up in the Maryland, DC, Virginia area. Yes, today, African Liberation Day. This year, it feels more intense than years gone by. I'm noticing that everything is showing signs of greater importance and of urgency. We're in the tailspin, those of I that live in the West, that live in this region. I are in the tailspin of Babylon. I are watching the fall of Babylon in real time, like a live stream, right? And seating up this light, reasoning on African liberation, puts I in the mindset of the father of African unity, who I still report to. Kadamawi Haile Selassie I. Now, I know Kwame Nkrumah also. We acknowledge his role, but definitely I are the Rastafari faithful, and I report to Kadamawi Haile Selassie I. And I thus, by default, we are the ones that will have to recognize and realize repatriation and the new trajectory for Africa, right? His Majesty has shown I and taught I the importance of African unity, and the importance of African unity is what will lead not just Africa, but the entire world, right? I will have to look at the how. That is what comes into my irids when I think about repatriation and the liberation of African people, African liberation. I think of the how. Just about 2 strongs ago, I were on the Zoom, Dijazmach Kwasi, and one of the attendees blocked a sound, and it was an aha moment. I realized that the handful of I are the ones. It is the chosen few. Those of I that are brave, those of I that are knowledgeable, those of I that have the resources, those of I that have the desire, and finally, those of I that are obedient. Right? How excellent is thy name, most merciful Kadamawi Haile Selassie I. I have been told. I have been warned. I have been armed. I must now look at the how. When I did my dissertation work, I wrote on post-secondary education as a conduit to Ethiopic repatriation. When I joined the Ethiopian World Federation, local number 1 in 1992, so 32 years ago, I was thinking of Ethiopic repatriation. Today, as I am older and wiser, I know that the whole of Africa is Ethiopia, right? And I must look at the how. What I will bring to the reasonment as I flow into it is the idea or the notion or the concept of a communal model, looking at communal living as a means to attaining or realizing African repatriation. So for these few words, I give thanks. So joyful to seat up with the eyes and the eyes, and to get the knowledge and the wise mind that the eyes will bring forward. Give thanks. Rastafari.
Give thanks, give thanks. So you see the power, family. If you're not subscribed to the platform, make sure you subscribe to the Lion Voice Network. We are quickly rising as a very important centralizing platform for the Rastafari and Pan-African family. We have a vision to create content that is specifically for Rastafari, unapologetically, because every community needs its voice, and our voice has to have shape. We need our own animated films, our own feature films. We need our own documentaries, and we need platforms that's all that they're concerned with, is creating for I. We cannot depend on Babylon to do it for us. I also want to acknowledge that Dr. Chinzira is also a queen mother, a priestess. I also want to acknowledge that Dr. Wolete, her book about His Majesty's mother, was one of the inspiration for I book that I wrote about the birth of His Imperial Majesty, and I cited her book heavily in my own book. So this is a very special gathering of Rastafari, ones who are not just saying they're in the liberty, but are actually putting forward legacy work. So you can see Dr. Walete's book. Please, family, support it. we want to circulate the Rastafari dollar. That's one of the things we want to do with this. And I want all of my guests, whatever your product or services, before, during, while, or after the reasoning, please let the people know, because I don't want us to just have these reasoning, but I want us to also actively create the economic base that we're going to need to sustain what we're talking about. We have to circulate economics among each other, and that is key to what we're doing. So we've set the framework. I'm going to now say to the family, we are seeing Ghana leading the way with the year of return, a large influx of diaspora that came. I was a part of an initiative in 2012. We sent Nana Faraika, our Queen Mother Nana Faraika, to South Africa as a part of an initiative. That initiative grew into become the Dark Foundation that is still active to today. But we started, raised the playing field, and she went to this conference where the sixth region of the diaspora was declared as the sixth region of Africa, which was the first time in history that formal acknowledgement from the African Union. And remember, when His Majesty made his visit to the Caribbean, he was telling Trinidad and Jamaica to join the Organization of African Unity. He was coming with a message to make that connection. We saw in 2012 a move has been made. Ras Tafari has talked about, this has not been active. The diaspora and these mechanisms have not been as active as they could be. Bongo Grease, if the eye can adjust the eye camera, because I'm coming to the eye so we can see the eye face. I want to just push out to the panelists. Currently as we stand, most people are dealing with survival. We're trying to buy groceries. We're trying to put gas in the car. How realistic for the Rastafari family is this repatriation? Should we be waiting for the United Nations to bring us a plan? We see how that's working for the people of Gaza right now, depending on international assistance. What should we as Rastafari be doing in the context of where we are present? I want this conversation to be real. Bongo Greece, in Trinidad, how realistic is this repatriation for Rastafari, and how do we need to be looking at this repatriation? Is it, as we say, government to government? Is it individuals coming together in small groups to plan? Is it organization? How is the IC seeing repatriation at this time, Bongo Greece? Hold on, you're muted there. Unmute yourself there, Bongo Greece.
Listen.
There you go. Yes, I.
I would say towards repatriation, there has to be an initial healing process. Take for instance, as the brother Kwame Nkrumah had, during his discourse earlier on, had shown in terms of African unity, there needs to be a full understanding among our people as towards self-reliance. Self-reliance, that is why Rastafari has to take the forefront. Self-reliance is not only for Rastafari alone, but for the whole of Africa. In terms of self-reliance, actually helps individual to grow, each individual to grow. As my sister Queen Mother Moses had indicated earlier, Chinese come to a country, right? And then what happened? They are the business people. Look at America. The Chinese got reparation. The Chinese got reparation in America. They became all the big business people there. So we need to have a full understanding and identity of who we are. I think one of the biggest problems before we look at repatriation is that there's always a saying, give an eye again, an eye culture, language. It is essential today that every youth understand or know an African language. That language is going to actually put the youth into a more African feeling. It's like what brings African together is culture, right? culture, that African culture is culture. However, that particular culture is based upon our spirituality, which allows us to form a common goal, not religion. You know what I'm saying? So in the context, it is important for our children to learn a language. Just by speaking the language, they feel more African. It's like taking a child for the first time and dress them up in a military uniform. Suddenly they get an attitude because they feel like a soldier or a police. So it's the same way, giving our children, I mean, apart from wearing African clothes, I teach them a language. You know what I mean? Teach them self-reliance. We go to the market. We go to the market as Africans. We would circulate the whole market and pass all our people free and buy from everybody else because you feel that the other races may give you a discount, but not your people. But then you fail to understand that there's a consumer's mafia. The other people are getting the goods cheaper than us. We actually paid $1 or $2 more for the goods. However, we are still trying to bring the best goods to you to buy. Again, I heard the sister indicated earlier on, she's an author writing books. These books are very valuable books towards the cultural development of our people. Yet you find our own people tend to pass the books straight, they're not buying the books. But if the sister put it on Amazon or eBay, they will go there and pay 3 times the price for it rather than buying it exactly from her. So we need to have that kind of educational development. You know, our demise is really because of our education, because of the education that we receive.
I wanna pose a hard question to the eye as the elder Bongo Grease. Has Rastafari demonized economics? You know, the elder generation, did we demonize making money? Did we make poverty a badge of honor? What do you say about this in terms of our own Rastafari culture? Because I want us to look internally and have some accountability as well.
Wouldn't say so. I think what happened is that the system had taken away Rastafari sustainable development in terms of economics. Because remember at that time, under cannabis, the Rastafari movement, even in my country in Trinidad, were generating quite a lot of money. All the vegetable stalls in the market were controlled by Rastafari. All the promotions of reggae artists coming to the country were controlled by Rastafari. The drag malls, all the different, all the different cultural centers, everything was controlled by Rastafari. At that point in time, although cannabis was the #1 agent for bringing in sustainable money economics, it was still a catalyst for food because more young Rastafari, from the time you become a dread, a Rastaman, the first thing you do is plant a garden. So food was there. But since the government came now and started imprison Rastafari, lock up Rastafari, they actually take away that economic drive from Rastafari in terms of that sustainability for Rastafari to develop the particular communities. Because wherever Rastafari is not only about where the mansion is, wherever the mansion is about the welfare and well-being of the entire community.
And I want everyone to know, Bongo Grease, that there is also part of the leadership of the All Mansion initiative in Trinidad. So this is, this elder is living what he's also talking about. He's still active on the front line. He hasn't sit in a rocking chair with a chalice pipe yet, although he might do it once or twice, but he's not there yet. He's still on the front line. I want the people to realize, Bongo Grease, that there is still a front line soldier,
Yes,
very important. Queen Mother Moses, talk to I and I in terms of this question, in terms of realistically, when I sit amongst most of I and I, people are on day-to-day survival. They don't want to hear no repatriation talk. Who are in Jamaica, you know what I mean, in Cassava Peace, which for the dancehall fans they call it Gully Side. Mavado popularized this area. It's a world famous area, but she's giving you the African history side. To the Barlet community is Gully Side. How realistic is repatriation, and how, as Rastafari, how do we overcome this, the economic reality of repatriation? Unmute there, Royal Queen.
Okay, given time. Yes, the first and foremost thing that needs to be communicated and inculcated, into this community and this generation is the fact that repatriation is a process. It is not an act. Once are acting as if repatriation is just go to Africa and that's it. The process is mental, spiritual, and physical. Most probably will never get to the physical repatriation. But at the very first thing that I and I will need to do is the mental repatriation of the mind. You have to have an African mind. If you don't have an African mind and you go to the continent will spit you out. You will not be able to have that sustainable state. You have to have the African spirit also. Because if you don't have an African spirit and you try to repatriate to Africa with the colonial mind of the colonialists who enslaved our people, the continent is going to spit you out also. However, I and I must be clear in this repatriation process physically that I and I, born in the 6th region, have been blessed to be exposed to information and resources that has allowed us to open our minds and reclaim our identity as African born abroad. Please be aware, and I'm not going to preach to the choir here, but for those that might be in the audience, that you will be disappointed if you go to Africa and think that all Africans have an African mind. They are still trying to go to Europe and America and dying and doing all kinds of things because they too were colonized by the colonialists. So the first thing that I and I need to define is functional unity. That's what we need. Our God and King founded the Organization of African Unity, and he wanted it to be functional unity. What is functional unity? Functional unity is an intergenerational system and infrastructure which naturally aids members of a social group, such as the Rastafari faith movement, in building power to control the economic, political, and cultural life of the communities that we live and interact in. Because community is about living in common unity. So functional unity is that system and infrastructure through which every community will be able to promote and protect its vital interests. This requires unselfishness. Individuals can't only want to deal for themselves and just their family. We have to see how our cultural life of our community will be expanded by the way we deal with unity in peace and love. When our dollar come into our community, it needs to be turning around in our local businesses several times before it goes out of the community. That's how we control our economic and and cultural life. That's what we do here in Cassava Peace. We have all kinds of businesses in our village. We have we have our wholesale, we have bar, we have grocery, we have meat shop, we have everything. We have clothing stores. We have everything within the community. So individuals get an opportunity to turn over their dollars within this village before we go abroad and outside of the village. That's what needs to happen in every community. Another important thing, and then I will move on. His Majesty says, yes, I am Christian, but as king, I am equally Christian, Muslim, and pagan, which of course is indigenous African spirituality, like voodoo and whatever other African spirituality I and I will indulge in. The Rastafari have to keep that in mind. You can't go to the continent and go and talk about saying just Rastafari. You understand? Like Islam don't have a right to exist. And like our indigenous knowledge systems and spirituality is not in place. And that even if the African had taken Christianity or Islam, they never left their African spirituality. They found some way to encompass whatever they were coming into within their African spirituality. And that is an important thing to keep in mind also. So we have Jerusalem, and it says Jah rule Salem in Putidachaba, which is the gathering place. We have our ancient elders who have become ancestors, holding that land for I and I born in the 6th region to come home to. It is the only school infrastructure from apartheid days that have been kept in good condition. And guess who kept it in good condition, ready for the educators to come? It is the Rastafari. When you go to Jerusalem and you go into our buildings, you are going to see Holy Emmanuel. You're going to see the different mansions represented because they are waiting on I to come home. And in Jerusalem, we have river, the mountains. We have 12 different entrances, they say, the mountains, just like how the Bible tells us about Jerusalem. And we have the spring, the natural spring at the top of the mountain to give us the spring water that we can buckle and put our label so that we can monetize and be able to do these things. We have a unique kind of corn and other agricultural things that we can come up with, and it is unique to Jerusalem. Because in Jamaica, we have some unique ways of agriculture, even with our cannabis, our sacrament, that we need to be able to have IP, our intellectual property rights, supporting those things. So what's needed, of course, the council, and we founded the Rastafari All-Mansion Council of Elders in Azania. They were supposed to also do the same thing in Jamaica the date that it was done. But, Jamaica dropped the ball, which is one of the reasons that I want to say that our ancients and ones, when a consultant come and tell us that, okay, we're going to make April Rastafari month, on the continent, as far as they are concerned, Rastafari is not a Jamaican thing. So just because Emperor Haile Selassie came to Jamaica in April, the continent is not seeing that. That is what it's supposed to be. Then say come to my country in a different time. So we need to be clear. And, you can't just fall to everything that come. You have to hold on to what you know and stand up for truth and right no matter where you are in the world. Because that's what this Empress Queen Mother is known for. I speak truth to power, family, friends, and foe. For all those words, I give thanks and ask one of the other panelists to continue.
Yes, give thanks, Queen Mother Moses. You touched some very serious topics. Rasifo, this issue of the practical repatriation, how realistic does it look from your angle on the ground? What are the sounds that the community in South Africa, how do one cite repatriation there on the ground in South Africa? And how do we overcome this economic, because every community, it seems, is facing the same economic crisis in terms of focusing on survival rather than building of institutions coming together to solve these wider problems. When you go to each community that I've been in and I've traveled, everyone is kind of in their own individual corner trying to survive day to day, put food on the table, take care of their family. How do we overcome this to realize this repatriation? And what does it look like from your vantage point, Rasifo?
Rastafari King. And I think you will recall that 20 years ago when we had a global Rastafari African Union South Africa diaspora in Jamaica, these issues were being tabled in that meeting. But when you recall in South Africa, the first one of the repatriates being Mama B in Cape Town, who parted 2 years ago. The challenge is also the colonial laws. When you look at the colonial laws, either in terms of the migration, we have not looked into that as a Rastafari community, actually. So the laws that are in South Africa of Home Affairs, whenever we have elders who come, there's always have to be a support either from a church, from Nyabingi. There's always have to be the visa as a tourist visa, that we have to always jump to the other border and come in. So I think we have not moved in terms of the global reasoning or the global diaspora of how to accept this right of return vis-a-vis repatriation. And secondly, as Mama Moses said, it is important that I must be prepared mentally. Bongo Greece raised an important question, my king, the issue of cultural orientation, not cultural assimilation, cultural orientation of language, cultural orientation of the values and the practices of different African communities that I visit, respect of the kings and the queens where we are visiting. So it has been the challenge also of dogma. It has been a challenge of religion rather than spirituality. It has been a challenge also of understanding the means of survival. And those means of survival is the state of readiness of the host, because the one who repatriates must be seen as a visitor, but he or she is not a visitor. But what I've picked up is that many mentions have been raised in this issue that we need to be ready. And we have seen also the role of reggae artists who will also fund some of the elders to come this side. Sometimes you will say they don't even fund them. They sometimes dump them. They just send them a one-way ticket, King. As Luciano said, one-way ticket to Mama Africa. And that way, one-way ticket becomes reality. That the man cannot survive also. He loses contact with his family. He loses contact with reality also. Serious. And I can tell you, we have lost many of the elders who have repatriated from many countries, whether from Jamaica, who have been here. And again, he said, if you can recall, Merija, who was repatriated for Benin. Sad moment that I learned that Merija, she has passed on. But when you look, those are the mothers who were involved. So in short, I'll say reality goes to the laws, colonial laws that we have to fix, state of readiness in terms of the host. The third aspect, how do we now emphasize the guarantee of the right of return? But also how, as a Rastafari, we start to occupy land. How do we start to have our own spaces? As Mother Moses once again raised the issue of Jerusalem School. That's an educational space also, but it's also a spiritual space for all Rastafari. So there's a need for I that we don't occupy small land. We occupy vast hectares of land that are for business, that are for education, that are for human settlement, the communal aspect that Empress Wallet spoke about of common unity. But also, I think we need to move around relying amongst ourselves, because we can't rely on the state alone. Yes, we can pursue the state to a certain limit, but we have to claim our rights from the state, because we have been quiet, we have been silent, we have been lenient to claim our rights from the state. Hence, I raised that issue of the right of return vis-a-vis repatriation, the same question of reparation. So in short, I would say the question of repatriation, it also the intercultural relations. How do we relate also? You know, this week it was also the World Day for Cultural Diversity and Development. It means I must also develop. It must not be just we are diverse. There is repatriation, we talk about enslavement, maafa, and reparation, but we don't get into the nitty-gritties of how do we relate as I. How do we communicate in advance when man makes a mission? Remember, even when the Rastafari elders made mission to Ethiopia to meet with Emperor, there was a protocol, there was administration. So it is important for INI to always have administration that is intact, communication that is clear, and also to engage where we have challenges with some of our elders when they are facing immigration deportation, because the issue of deportation is also a threat to an Rastafari community whenever they move from the living spora to the African continent. Give thanks to you.
Give thanks, give thanks, give thanks. We have Nkesi. Hail him, our majesties, greeting honorables, give thanks for the reasoning, tuning in from South Africa. Just to let the item know that this is a global platform. We have Highly Dread Selassie watching from Vinci. Blessing, 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 St. Vincent family. We have my teacher, Queen Mother, Dr. Chinzira, always keeps it spiritual realm. We must go high to win the battle of good over evil. That looks like one of the students there, or trainees. Dr. Chinzira, blessings, blessing. John Rogers said Ras Tafari's books are treasures. So we give thanks. The family is healing up. Jean Charles healing from Trinidad. Bless up yourself. Bless up yourself. We have Sister Cheryl. Thank you for all today's forum of global voices. Big up yourself. And we have Regional Arendelle, Rastafari family watching from the island of St. Martin. So global platform here on the Lion Voice Network. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe, support Rastafari independent, non-aligned media. We are building a vision here of our own voices, and we are so honored by this esteemed panel. I'm going to ask Dr. Chinzira to answer the same question, the practical reality of repatriation. Sometimes as scholars we go over the head, but people look in their fridge and they're looking for how they're going to make it to the next paycheck. They're looking at, some people don't even have a paycheck in terms of Rastafari. We are on the road hustling jelly, or we have some crafts, or we have some tam. You know, how in St. Croix is the practical reality of repatriation, Dr. Chinzira, and what are some of the practical things as someone who has traveled extensively and lived in Africa? You know, what do we need to be thinking about to tackle this this vision?
That's a very powerful question, because I'd like to start where I ended before. Repatriation definitely has to be from the mindset. Like, your spiritual energy has to be prepared to even move from this physical space that you're so accustomed to. with all, your running water and your everything. Not that running water does not exist in Africa, but I'm just saying there's certain conveniences, there's certain works in your trad. When I was traveling to the continent back in the 70s, it was more of a, yeah, we were like backpack, go to the ground food, make sure you have clean water, something to sprinkle in water, keep it clean. Very different trad to Africa in 2024. St. Croix, part of the Virgin Islands, and I would be remiss if I didn't identify that according to legislative law in the Virgin Islands, the third since 1989, through the efforts of a variety of Pan African organizations, and specifically with the leadership and guidance of a very powerful griot who is now an ancestor. And I call his name most honorably Dr. Jean Kenneth Labembe Emmanuel. The Virgin Islands has designated, again, since 1989, even if certain people forget, the third week of May of every year, according to law, is Virgin Islands African Heritage Week. And on the 25th of May, according to the same law, the African Liberation flag is to be raised in front of the Capitol building of the Virgin Islands legislature every year. I just want to highlight that. So there might be a couple of years they might try to sneak out because it's not carnivalesque enough, not festivalesque enough. But according to the law, that's in place. And that includes activities that the Commissioner of Education is supposed to be doing 15 days before this week manifests. These are things that the Office of the Governor are required, according to law. There's things that are supposed to take place by legislature. So I want to highlight the legislature, executive branch, specifically Office of the Governor, and the Department of Education have a requirement according to law. You know, like how to get ready to give you tickets for the seatbelt you don't wear?
Yes.
Right. That there. I think it's important a person should know that. So usually every year, and for probably over a decade, many of us have worked together to make sure that we craft the language because there is supposed to be a proclamation linked to that. And inside of that proclamation, it's always that language geared towards reparatory justice and reparations, shifting our mindset to a more African-centered one, African liberation as it's linked to reparation and repatriation and restitution. Some people don't like to bring up that one, but we need to make sure we bring all the R's, bring all of them, because it means that we are renewing our mindset. And the best way to do that is, again, as I mentioned earlier, through this ancestral sacred tradition and our respect of those ancestral sacred traditions. And when we speak of Ras Tafari, and I'm giving thanks and praise to the Empress, Queen Mother, Moses, Doctor, shared that because we tend to think that functional unity or that unity is some kind of a amazing type of gathering, like everybody got to like everybody into foreverness. No, because everybody don't always trot the same way. Me, I don't like tofu. Some people love tofu and soy till they're dead. You understand? I don't say none. Some people want to deal with flesh. Some of our people are not going to come into the irids of fullness and ionity and certain liberty when it comes to their nutrition. I don't trouble that. Functional unity. We're operating on a space of that which is biological, that which is physiological, that which is emotional, that which is spiritual. And the one that we tend not to talk about that you, brethren, brought up so eloquently, economics. Because some people tend to feel because you have money that you like next to the most satanic, demonic energy in the earth. And disaster capitalism, exploitative capitalism, yeah, evil, can't finish. But we are to live prosperously. One of the ideal elements in that principle is persons hear me referencing, and many of us reference in general. When I say truth, justice, order, reciprocity, balance, divine righteousness and harmony. That's Ma'at. And you can't say that Rastafari, ancestral African people across the planet don't deserve prosperity. And the prosperity and always positive, holding us up with agriculture, holding us up with architecture, construction sciences, making sure we have the shelter we deserve. Nobody got to just do lean to. There's nothing palace. We speak of mansions. How does it say? In my father's house there are many mansions. He has prepared a place for me. I used to sing that song. In my mother's house there are many mansions, and she has prepared them for me. Because it couldn't be father without mother, and couldn't be mother without father. So when we speak in this vibration, and again, it just connects to exactly what His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie the First, Her Imperial Majesty Empress Menen Asfa, they gave us a vibration of prosperity and how you travel, how you move around the earth. And they were doing it at a time that they didn't have all of the luxuries that we have been afforded. So yes, in the Virgin Islands, St. Croix, cultural capital of the VI, there's these observances. You know, there's sometimes we have to kind of press to remind persons of the law that exists. But when we speak of repatriation, you're talking about repatriation in the mental space first. Because some people like to physically go and they have the money, they have many long donza, and they're in Africa. But they're bringing the same less than progressive mindset from the West and just transplanting it over some. And that's not what authentic, sacred, sovereign repatriation is to be about. So yes, persons worry about, everybody worrying about just having electricity stay on most of the time. Persons trying to make sure that they can have proper food. They're very quick to make you get food that's trash, that kills you and makes you die from all kinds of health inequities, right? But this is a time where we have the opportunity within Rastafari to shed light on what that would look like so persons can prepare. The same way that people prepare for their independent retirement annuity programs, the same way that people prepare to make sure they have insurance for their children and their grandchildren, great-grandchildren, the same way people have no problem having a 30-year mortgage with a bank that's keeping more than half of your money, then we have to shift that in terms of our economic engagement and make sure that we place health and wellness and prosperity and stability in the same way that we look at what is repatriation and how do I repatriate in my mind, in my spirit, in my soul first, so that I can do the proper preparations to then be in the continent. That's how come I was pretty young in grad school, living in Burkina Faso under the leadership of the Honorable, one of the best presidents that I can speak of, Thomas Sankara.
Wow.
You understand? It wasn't like a light thing. It was like he called for people to come to bring their skills, and all of us weren't prepared. Half of us didn't know French, definitely couldn't speak all of the mother tongue languages in the countryside. But there was an openness. How they say, stretch forth your hand, and the welcoming. All of the things they said, it's drought, you're gonna dead, you're gonna get malaria. Nothing. We ate well, and I was a live food vegan then. You understand what I'm saying? So we have an opportunity when we speak of repatriation, of doing the preparation, and what you have established here with the Lions Voice Network and all of the different skills, talents, and expertise that each of us here and everybody connected, because I can look down this whole line of the comments, and most of the persons, and I give thanks and praise for those that are supporting this particular network. But support is more than just the word. We have to put like money, resource,
Yes.
and preparation together. Like that's the layer of African unity that's authentically functional, because then it lets us move in the proper versation of principled unity, because then principled unity supports African fundamentalism, Pan-Africanism, all of these different systems that facilitate our ability to walk together, live together, invest together, and do it with trust, loyalty, and integrity.
Give
So I
thanks.
just to give a little section.
Yes, yes. Give thanks. And let me big up the Lion Pride on Patreon. We have 15 fire angels from around the world that are investing financially in the Lion Voice Network. I encourage all of my brothers and sisters, $5, $10, $25, whatever you can afford, become part of the community here, so we can elevate. We want to take this to a higher level, you know what I mean, in terms of being able to sponsor events, being able to produce documentaries, films, animation, all kind of things, but we can't do it unless we fund it. The government is not going to fund it. Pepsi is not going to support I and I'm going to tell the I them KFC not going to support I. So we need our family support. Come on board. Big up all of the 15. I had 2 people in my Patreon for over 2 years, so I'm glad for my 15, and we're gonna build and continue to build. I'm not stopping, family. Before I get to Dr. Walete, I want to ask the Aya question, Dr. Chenziro. How do we prepare the minds for repatriation? Is it a Saturday school? Do we start with? Do we? Because I want us to get practical. How do we, prepare ones? Is it online courses? How do you recommend, or what are some solutions that I can give I and I to prepare the mind? Because we established the iris and the mind have to be prepared first. That's stage 1.
I would start with definitely the educational portion. And there are a number of Saturday schools. There's, like, even in the Virgin Islands, there's Sankofa Saturdays. There's persons that are doing things through media, reaching out to families. We've established here in the Virgin Islands a Virgin Islands Homeschooling and Natural Educators Association. So it was broad for those families that did not want their children to be involved in public education as it sits. But it also provides for those students that had special needs, and it allows for persons to bring in the content that we need to bring in that is grounded in Ras Tafari and ancestral sacred traditions. Yeah, I know that Brother Obi Egbuna II has been engaged in teaching youth literally all around the earth in multiple languages, all about African history, legacy, etc., so that they are more receptive from young on that repatriation, reparations journey and trad, and not being uncomfortable when someone says, let's go to Africa instead of going to the Mediterranean cruise. Because that's the thing, everybody want to go to Europe. Everybody comfortable going to Europe, or I want to go to States. And I keep telling them, I could tell you some nightmarish stories that would make you never, ever go north of Florida. How about that? So I've learned to use, for me, I use storytelling. So whether it's through Bambula, our traditional dance and communication vibration, whether it's through music, whether it's through technology, coding, chess, whatever is required to get to those young minds, to get them to begin to have this versation around how important, just as the Empress shared, we are royalty. And if you don't come from a space and you think that your beginning starts with enslavement and colonization and torture and rape and terrorism and everything bad, then right, we have to show you that that's like this small. And all of this is what you represent in terms of your regality, your royalty, and the reconnection therein. So I would recommend that portion. I think it's really important, like you said, to support the organizational entities that support us in moving this vibration of openness and our restoration of our sovereignty all the time. So whether it's through all of the networks that each and every one of us are linked with, whether it's through the IDO International Network, which does what? Bring African brothers and sisters and royalty, kingdoms, queendoms, realms, let me be very specific, from the continent all across the earth into its entirety. Anyone can go to that website, and I'll put the website in before we close out for the evening. I think it's important that persons know that there are these type of organizations that exist, whether it's the Caribbean Pan-African Network, which has, again, our focus is in the Caribbean, yes, and we navigate true Pan-Africanists. But our focus is to keep this vibration strong. Had it not been for some of the works of the Caribbean Rastafari organization, some of these conversations wouldn't have happened. And I need for persons to be very clear, and I'm not apologetic on any forum. You know, all the Rastafari houses, the realms, the orders, ow, everybody have their portion. Everyone put pitch, 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 because there's a technique and a strategy that has allowed for us to have this conversation around repatriation, which is tied, sometimes I get twisted, but it's tied to reparation. It's tied to reparatory justice. It's tied to restitution. And it's tied to the reconstruction of our soul self as ancestral African people living in a contemporary space, whether it's America, Caribbean, Central America, whatever. Whichever part we're at, our focus is supposed to be so that we have a fusion of culture, healing, arts, technology, and spirituality. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Culture, healing, arts, technology. Don't forget that one.
Cool,
And
sir.
spirituality, because sometimes we forget that all this technology we see, from AI that they think is AI that's really machine guided knowledge systems, they think cognitive science and all this technology came from them there. No, we the original. So when we keep that vibration shift moving forward with our youth, with our elders that can give us the wise counsel and the teachings, and even if they may not agree with all of some of the things we deal with, whether cannabis becomes an issue for them, and we walk with that. That's where the principle and functional unity come in, because they know back in the day, in like 1920, it was all legal. Everything was everybody. But when it
Yes.
came to the money dunza and that capitalist imperialist demon that wanted to terrorize a plant, that took it to another place. So I speak these things because that's where the economy piece. When we speak of economy, it's not only liquid capital, but it's social capital, it's
Definitely.
spiritual capital.
Definitely.
And so hopefully through these types of reasonings and other examples, because there's a number of resources. You've got the Universal Negro Improvement Association, African Communities League, RC 2020, and all of the iterations that are doing this work. And again, what did Garvey, true to teachings that he gathered from his Imperial Majesty, as quiet as some people like to keep it. Let's be straight. When you have that kind of grounding and you, wow, there's a real emperor and a real empress, what? Right, that shifts everything on how people begin to see
Yes.
in 2024 that we are part of this royal legacy that we must reconnect with, and through our linkages with ancestral traditions that are sacred. I want to make sure I highlight that, not just any ancestor you want to call, but ancestral sacred traditions. So when people see AST speaks, that's what the AST is for. Some people may think
Okay.
speaking of Osset, and that's cool. Shida and Neto.
Okay.
But the vibration is our ancestral sacred, or what I like to use, sanctified, because it's a sanctified life force that's there and there. I don't get to carry an ankh because it was a thing to do. There were initiations that took intervals of 7 years each.
Okay.
See what I'm saying? For us to be able to do this type of
Power.
work, power and strength, to be able to be with the family and offer some practical elements of how we do this work, as well as that theoretical element, and then fusing them so that we have the synergy in the heights, in the iris.
I want to just give thanks. I also want to take this
I
opportunity.
pray thee, the Jasmus Kwasi.
Yes.
May I please just add one thing to this issue of the Sabbath school or Saturday school, because the
Yes.
first school for Rastafari youth was started in my apartment on Union Street in Brooklyn, New York. The students
What was the
are,
year? What was the year?
included Morgan Heritage.
What
None
was
of
the
those
year?
students have
What was
given
the
up the Rastafari faith that went to that school, because everything a child needs to learn in life, they learn it in the first 7 years. That's why it is important that I and I control the education of our youth for the first 7 years of their life. After that, you can send them anywhere as long as you're doing your homework, the homework empowerment learning, program that I and I supposed to be a part of. Give thanks for those few words.
Give thanks. I also want to take the opportunity to inform us about the anniversary development of Rastafari study group. Myself and Dr. Walete are board members. Dr. Walete is the board chair. Although we're here in our individual capacities, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the IDOR study group, which is one of our principal vehicles that we talk about repatriation with the global family. And we are going to be announcing some initiative via IDOR soon. And you'll hear about it here on the Lion Voice Network. We're reasoning. We've blocked the sound about a repatriation summit, and we're not going to rest until that manifests. But we will have details. All right, Dr. Walete, I want to ask the same question. I and the I, we are here in America where most of the world wants to get where we are here in America. They are looking at America as an opportunity place. They want to come here. The Rastafari community here in 2024, we don't hear that zeal around repatriation. There's a few of I and I that gather and we block up and we're excited and we travel back and forth. There's a handful of us, 3 of them are on this call right now. But how talk to us about practical repatriation, coming from the races that are in the US and Canada and probably the UK, Europe as well would fall into the same category as I and I. Talk to us about the practical realities and what does that look like?
Yes, I give thanks. I'm listening to the eyes block, and as I listen, I'm taking these deep breaths. I'm feeling angst and I'm feeling anxiety because I don't know that I and I have the time to do that which is required. I don't know that I and I have time to get the language. I don't know that I and I have the time to raise the resources, the economic piece. I think that I and I have to look closely at the UNIA model. I and I have to look closely at speedily developing spaces in every region that will articulate the importance of repatriation. And I have to have these branches, whether it be Jamaica, the 50 states in the US, South America, Central America, the Caribbean. I and I have to spring up branches, meeting spaces where I and I are articulating to the masses the importance of repatriation. Once I and I have their attention, I and I will map the way forward by looking at skills trade, getting the painters, the carpenters, the doctors, and I have Rastafari doctors, the nurses, the teachers, the professors, the lawyers, all of the different skills, trade and academic trades. I believe that is the talking piece. That's what I wrote about in 2010, 11. Post-secondary education as a conduit to Ethiopic repatriation. I think I and I can have a seat at the table. This is the time for the seat at the table. I and I have a voice, but I and I have to be prepared to go to the table with something. What are I and I saying to those that govern and lead Africa now? What are I and I saying? How do I and I get them to support the building of infrastructure to accommodate I and I. The schools are not teaching the children. I and I have to come with the resources to build the schools, the institutions of higher learning, and the institutions from pre-K 3, from age 3, age 2, all the way up to the institutions of higher learning. I and I have what it takes right here in Washington, D.C. What I see when I look around, Dijasmach Kwasi, I see lots and lots of ones that are skilled. IDOR alone is a powerhouse. I see the resources. I and I have the resources. I and I cannot be afraid to pool our resources. And I have to put money together, and I have to use those resources towards the greater good of repatriation. And I have to help along I and I's brethren and sistren that are not in positions to do so. When I and I get land in Africa, and I have to think about those that don't have land. I'm looking now at land in Africa. The model that I'm creating is building homes that have an extra room, just one extra room to welcome a family. It can be a 6-month vibration, 12-month vibration, but preparing spaces that are not used on a daily basis by the families that reside in the homes. So when a one says, I'm ready to come, I'm a painter, I'm a plumber, I'm an attorney, I'm a doctor, I'm a teacher, I'm ready to come, but I can't get land now. I can't build now. I am able to say, well, my home has an extra room, because it is one hand wash the other, two hands to clap. When the plumber and the painter comes, there's work in the community for them. Before you know it, they've moved on to either another family or to their own space, and a new family is welcomed. I can't imagine how else it will happen. I can't. The Mama Fires of the world. Is Mama Fire getting land in Africa to build? No. But I am, right? And I really have to look at the reality of repatriation. I don't want to be over in Africa by myself. I want to look to the left and look to the right and see my brethren and sistren there with I. I want to be able to send my children to institutes of learning that are talking about the selected speeches of His Imperial Majesty, that are talking about the mighty work of the UNIA, that are talking about the Organization of African Unity. All of these things that will empower African youth to be forward thinking, to be Cree lovers of their own destiny. You know, I and I are late going home. When I went to Ethiopia in 2009, I sat with Brother B.J. Moody, Mama Faya's uncle, Ras Solomon Wolf. And when I and I seated up, Ras Solomon Wolf told I and I are late coming. Ras Julian said I and I are late coming, and that was 15 years ago. So I don't know that I and I have the time to really map the thing out the way that it should be mapped out, but I believe that I and I need to be speedy, not speedy in terms of haphazard and careless, but speedy in terms of urgency. I and I are really in real time live stream looking at the collapse of Babylon, right? We have to pool our resources. In DC here, there are a lot of resources. I and I are sitting in the seat of money here in Washington, DC. The DMV is very wealthy. People of African descent do well here. I and I have to find a way to pool the resources, pool the different skills, the trades that ones have, the professions that ones have, put all of that together, I think the governments will listen. I don't know that if we go to them and let them know that I have been wronged as Africans through the transatlantic slave trade, stolen and brought. I don't know that they're hearing that. Infrastructure has to be built in all of these countries that I are going to. Who's paying to build the infrastructure? Right? Who's building the homes that I will live in? Who's building the roads? Right now in Ghana, in the region there where land is purchased, roads need to be built. This is the responsibility of the government, right? But what are I going to them with to inveigle them and encourage them, right, to do what is right and to take up that responsibility and feel as though I are welcome worthy? I know I are going home. Yes, I are Africans. I are returning home. We were brought here against our will. But does the government acknowledge that? When I went to Ethiopia, at that time, the government did not acknowledge the Malkota land grant. And I thought in 1992, when I became a member of the Ethiopian World Federation, I would have access to the land grant, right? 10 years later, I'm writing about post-secondary education as a conduit to Ethiopic repatriation. They respect when we come and say we have a collective of 15 plumbers. We have a collective of 15 road builders, road workers, homes, ones that can build homes. We've pulled our resources and we have 15, 20 John Deere and different equipment. We have to go to Africa. We are in the West. We are in the place where you get all of this education. What I have done, give thanks, is we've brought it forward to our community. We are not slaves to Babylon. We've conquered. Those of I that call ourselves doctor, we have conquered the highest levels of Babylon and barely scraped the surface of African mystery schools with what Babylon calls their highest level. I do it and I sleep every day. We buck up on Rastafari people and African people that have conquered these levels. We have to go forward to Africa with this same, this is what His Majesty did. This was the model. Haile Selassie sent the ones all over the earth to be trained. Go and see what they're doing. Go and learn how they do it and come forward to Africa. Bring it home, right? I need to do that. And to do that, we need resources and we need to change the mindset of the people. We have to begin by having regular meetings. We have to try to broaden our reach. We need a global reach, and we need not be afraid to pool our monies. You have 5,000 that you're not using. Don't save it for your days in Babylon. Babylon is crumbling. Babylon is falling, right? And I never knew that I would be here to see the fall of Babylon, right? But I are. Ras is blocked about it, right? All of the founding fathers and the ancient Rastafari blocked about it. Prince Emmanuel talked about it, right? And I are here in these times witnessing the fall of Babylon. Yeah, and I have to come out of her, my people. How are we going to come out? We're going to come out by putting our resources together, seating up with the governments, writing letters, right? We're writing a letter. If Idor wrote a letter to the governments of Ghana and request a meeting, we don't hear forward, we write another letter. Those that are on the ground, let those in power know that we want an audience with them. Someone is going to hear I, but this is the way that I have to move. And the workers are few. That's the part that saddens I. The workers are few. It is the I, Dijas Matkwasi, that will have to write the letter. I will have to write the letter. Dr. Chenzira will have to write the letter. Queen Mother Moses, Rasipo, Bongo Greece. I are the letter writers. No one else is going to write the letter. No one else feels this urgency, right? It is I that keeps saying, oh, repatriation. We've heard from time immemorial, repatriation now, right? But we're not there. We're still in the West. We're still here. So now that we're feeling it bubbling up like a ginger ale or bubbling up like Kilimanjaro, I have to act. And we have to be serious. We have to put our money where our mouth is. You know, when I build my home not too long from now on the continent, I am building space to welcome those that cannot pre-love their own space. Nana Farika is not buying land in Africa. Bongo Wisely is not buying land in Africa. Mama Faya is not buying land in Africa, right? Ras Iris is not buying land in Africa. I that are standing on their shoulders, the shoulders of our ancestors and the shoulders of those Rastafari that paid a dear price. Oh, they paid a dear price. When we think about coral gardens, oh, they paid such a dear price. The brutality, the sufferation that Rastafari has endured. And today I stand somewhat triumphant, right? Doctor this and doctor that and attorney this and attorney that. I are in greater positions than them. When I go to the supermarket or to the Whole Foods or to the Aldi and the prices are so high, I'm still able to pay my bill, right? What about those that cannot pay? And I have to be mindful. This is what Rastafari has taught I. His Majesty has taught I that I have the responsibility for those that are less fortunate. And it doesn't mean you take everything you have and give, right? If I have a 4-bedroom house, I'll now build a 5-bedroom house. That's our responsibility. And we have to think that way, or else we will be in Africa alone. There's so many that can't come, but maybe they can paint. They can build kitchen cabinets. They can build homes, right? And I have to make sure that all of I are present at the table, right? We have that responsibility. I are tasked. The Rastafari faithful are tasked with becoming members of a new race. And that new race is the race that puts aside petty differences. Queen Mother Moses said it. Dr. Chenzira said it. I must walk hand in hand with our brothers and sisters of different faiths. Saying so, yes, for these few words I give thanks. Rastafari.
Give thanks, give thanks. All right, we're at 7, but I'm gonna do a little overtime because I want to get to an exciting part for I want us to use some creative license here. I'm going to grant each panelist $10 billion. All right, I'm gonna grant each panelist $10 billion.
In what currency?
US currency right now. No, pound. Cause we're using imagination. English pound. I'm gonna grant 10 billion pounds. What are the moves that we make as Rastafari? Now money is no option. That's why I'm granting the money, because I don't want money to be a obstacle. I want us to just visualize, what does repatriation look like? What are the institutions you're gonna build? What are the things that, what does your Zion, I've been using Garnet Silk, Zion in a Vision to promote this on social media, and he said, I saw Zion in a vision, stretching forth his right hand. It's like a family reunion. You know what I mean? This idyllic thing. And I think as Rastafari, we have to keep that idealism of this united and liberated Africa. That's part of our trust as well. That's what we bring to the table as Rastafari and as creatives. I'm going to start with the Ibongo Greece. I just wire 10 billion pounds into your bank account, Bongo Greece. Give us the moves? What's the next move, Bongo Grease? Give us the movements for the United Africa.
By United Africa with 10 million pounds into my account.
Billion with a B, no million.
Pounds into my account. Billion. My first initiative would be to build schools. Build schools with conscious African teachers that could actually bring the youths, from zero, as the sisters say, from 7 years. But I am taking my youths from from 0 to 11, from 0 to 12, enhancing the youth in terms of all aspects of life. Because within the teachings in Babylon system, Rabbi Wrong system right now, they teach you only to enter the civil service. They don't teach you anything about self-sustainability. So you knows nothing about yourself, nothing about yourself and how to generate or how to even navigate the system. And the worst of it all is to be a child and wake up in the morning and see a big white blue-eyed boy hanging on the wall. And that stems from generation to generation to generation, where children lost the respect and enthusiasm of the self. Because when you look at a child from small going to a particular in the urban area to clean a yard, while you cleaning the yard and picking up all the dog filth and everything, the colored child upstairs who comes to the window and peep downstairs and see you, he just watch you in such a manner that, okay, you see who is cleaning the yard and picking up the dog filth. So his philosophy is that job is not for him. He knows that, upstairs where he is there, he have to follow the other pattern, whether it be entrepreneurship or whatever. So I just showing you how downgrading is be to our children. So with that kind of money, I looking at schools, resource centers that could teach children proper skills, a skill bank. Because it's evident today that most of our children who did not succeed in school academically always believe that tech vocational schools is for failures, those who didn't succeed academically. So they get harassed. When in truth and in fact, a trade person who has a trade skill does actually make more money than a teacher. Because you go to school and sometimes I see some of the girls in the class and they're playing the fool, only talking about boys or men whole day, they're playing the fool. And some of the sisters, some of the others have attained academic passes and move on academically, are now doctors and teachers and everything. But however, those in the class who were playing the fool during that course of time end up picking up a skill. They are now nail technicians, hairdressers. Now they make more money than the teachers. They have more time for themselves because the teachers and the doctors have no time, actually no time much time for their family life. Where these nail technicians and all these people and them have more time for themselves. Again, so I look at skill development, learning resources in terms of skill development, and trying to bring all our African people to a higher standard of living in terms of consciousness. Because I can't give a man $1 million in his hand just so, and you don't know how to use it. It will soon depart in a couple minutes. So it's all about teaching ones and ones that aspect of thriftiness, how to navigate the system, how to learn a skill, how to empower oneself. Because there are so many esteemed sisters there on the platform. I read this be for a wife to see her husband could go outside and say pick up a couple of pieces of wood and build a phone cup, rather than have to call somebody outside to get him a job just as construct as a man to construct a phone cup. So the skills and the skill development, it would go a long way in terms of family life. Yes. So this would be some of the initiative that I would use for my money. And
just very
that kind of
where would those schools be built? In Trinidad, in the Caribbean, on the continent? Just give us where are these schools going to be built?
I would build here and I would build on the continent. I would love to build on the government, because Africa awaits its creators, and as such, having a multilateral or multicultural view of life, it will be easy for me to go home and set up that structures for my people, because that is part of my prerogative.
Give thanks, give thanks.
To
And I
return
want to
home
also
and do that.
acknowledge this panel is a result of Bungle Grease. Bungle Grease is the one who gave I the call and said we need to do something for African liberation, the elder. I am a tool of the Most High. So when my elder we make it happen. And Bungle Grease also has an extensive archive, so I could imagine that archive could be duplicated and put into these schools, so that the youths them could have access to all of these documents and rare books that Bungle Grease has in his possession. So give thanks, Queen Mother Moses. I'm wiring $10 billion pounds into your account, Queen Mother Moses. I need to know what is your plan.
Well, I will have to definitely lion back on Bongo Greece, because I am the chief education officer. And remember now, our God and King thought education so important that is the only ministry he never gave to anyone. He kept that ministry, so it's a very, very important component. So yes, schools, which would be at all levels, elementary, high school, and higher ed. And each school must have a museum, right? And we will have the cultural tourism component, because that is, our culture is very, 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 very wanted throughout the world. The Rastafari indigenous village model, I think that should be the model to be replicated on the continent and in the different islands. This way we have a source in every country or island, as we deal with the transition for the repatriation component. And dealing with schools, I would offer a scholarship to every single one of the students currently enrolled in the Haile Selassie High School in Jamaica, to ensure, because His Majesty, what he intended and what the government of Jamaica ended up doing is two different things. His Majesty gave them goal to create a university, to buy up all of the lands them around Payne Avenue, a university, and to create dormitories. Okay? We don't know what happened to the goal, but we know, say, they created a remedial school. What was supposed to be dormitories is now being used as public housing to regular housing communities. And they are going by the spirit of the law, not the letter of the law, because Haile Selassie High School goes up to grade 13. And I know that high school generally goes to grade 12. So they're kind of going on like say, yeah, them still are doing what them we're supposed to do. But I definitely have to have a presence in transforming that school from a remedial institution to an institution of excellence. From those students come in, from that grade that they come into, they should be instilled with a mindset for higher education. You are with us for the long term. And these institutions that we are building, that is the same model we would like to really impart. And the good news is that, Haile Selassie High School has partnered with Heart Trust. So they do offer the vocational training, because we want all our students to graduate with that solid academic background, but also have skills to start making money immediately. Whether they're going to fix care, they are going, whatever, fix air conditioning, intellectual property, they need to be ready to manage AI and not let AI manage them. Okay? So these are, we want models. And like I said, if I and I can really unpack the Rastafari indigenous village as a model, we will definitely be well ahead of the game. Now, I know the time is going, but I want to really just say we just need to implement and stop starting over. Everybody keep on starting over a new organization because them want to say them is the one we started and them is the one. We need to stop it. It's coming like the political parties. When political party lose power, the next one come and start over from scratch rather than continuing with what is working. If it not work, it's a different story. But if it works, you use that and you build on it to make excellent. Okay, we know that we do need a global institution for a secretariat for Rastafari. We have, and do look, I don't know if you can see. All right. The item can see. Wait, let me see. Wanna see? Wanna see me have on my button? RMO?
Yeah.
The Rastafari mansions and organization buttons. That is very important. His Majesty told us, that was part of the process. You understand? And the model that we were supposed to have. And we had started that before. We reached a far way before we got derailed for personal. Because individuals want to highlight personal individuals who them think that them want to highlight. That's how April become Rastafari month instead of the Lion of Judah month being July, and our Holy Mother April month, so we can make the world know who this Queen of Kings is. Yoval and Rastafari, because Rastafari don't even know who their Holy Mother is. Yoval. So land grants. We have, there are many institutions that have been abandoned on the continent, like Eureka in Tabanchu, where we can go in to these institutions. They already have buildings in them. As a matter of fact, when I first went to Tabanchu, and I saw that the clinic name was ARK, ARK. These things are there waiting for us to come and implement. No, the Rastafari Global Reason in 2003, that was held July 16 through 24 at the University of the West Indies. These are the resolutions. We know we got a set of resolution from 1983 that we're still struggling to deal with. And then we got 2003 that said that we need a global Rastafari secretariat for the creation of a permanent machinery to facilitate one unified force for Rastafari. So we have to have that. You understand? And it has to be linked in. Now we have the Rastafari Continental Council. Very, very important. You understand? Because that is the entity that we need to be taking now and putting out some declaration, because that is the continent. You understand? They had to step back because they had an advisor that advised them that they need to organize as indigenous Rastafari and get their act together before them can include those Africans born abroad. Foolishness, because of that, how many years now we stagnant, because who have those facilities and those kind of resources that can help on the continent that is short of human and not human, but material resources and financial resources. No, they have changed that. You understand? So I them definitely say them have to work with this all 6 regions, and that the 6 region becomes very, very important, because we have the brain gain. We're ready to come home and do what, and we are making sure that we are coming with African-centered models, not colonialist models.
Queen Mother Moses,
Blessing.
You're
Yes.
gonna fund that brain transfer with your 10 billion. Is that what I'm hearing? Are you gonna be funding?
Not just you see, because we are setting up the Rastafari indigenous villages, these villages are going to be money making places. You understand? That we can all, because and we are doing vocational education while we're doing academic educational also. So our youth, these are where people can come into these places, get them car fixed and, them air conditioning, at minimal, cost, because we have to keep going, because we have to keep our money circulating within these communities we are creating.
I like it.
So we have to fund the communities that we are going to be creating. We have to have a physical space and building that is the Rastafari Global Center. RMO needs that to be funded out of that billions of dollars the
Yes.
Jasma Squassy. That's one
Yes.
of the first thing. Because when you have a base, people can find you. And you can
Yes.
send out the frontline soldiers from the bases. You understand? And we
And staff.
replicate the
And
bases
pay
and all
staff.
of the countries in Africa.
Yes.
And every Caribbean island have a base also. So that's how we're going to use the billions of dollars that we're going to have.
Give
And we
thanks.
have it, you know. Don't think we don't have it, you know. And let me tell you
I
something.
know that.
We have it.
There's
We
a
have it.
message. There's a
So that's
message
why
to
we have
my
to give thanks.
message. Yes.
Yeah. With the one way, let me just close off now because the time is going on, right? Bedward, the flying prophet from Augustown, that tell the people them that they could fly and they would fly. But he was before his time. Dr. Waleta said she don't know if we have the time. You understand? But he was before him time and said the people would fly. And them lock him up as a lunatic. You understand? But guess what? Yes, Sister Kalanji funded the ancients them to go to the continent. And you see when them reach and them ask them, oh, no reach here. You know what them say? A fly will fly come here. So them fulfill bed words. You know see it, prophecy. You know see it. Yes. So we know now we don't want to keep on crossing borders every 3 months to keep our, you understand? We need to be working with the governments of the different African countries for the right of return. You understand? We're not begging this. We don't need us. We have the brain gain. You understand? They need us. Because those that get educated on the continent, them running from the continent. So the colonizers is the ones that getting the brain gain from them. So them need us. And them need to stop sell us. Them need to stop charging us 3 times the price of everything. Bless.
Give thanks. Give thanks. Ras Sifo. I get the 10 billion in your account. What is the I going to do with this money to help to facilitate this repatriation? What does your vision of a well-funded and financed liberation uprising look like?
Rastafari King, no, listening to Bongo Greece and Queen Mother, they've touched on the theme actually of the African Union for 2024 to focus on education. They've touched on an important aspect of land. They have touched on an aspect also of economic sustainability. But what I think I now will have to focus on in Azania and the Living Spora is the welfare and the welfare, social development, human and people's rights, protection of the Rastafari community, security and defense of the Rastafari community. Because even if you can talk of everything, but if you don't defend I myself, it will be difficult. And I think what is important also is to promote tourism, the tourism and the hospitality amongst I and I. We should invest in that so that it can grow further. The fifth element, it is also for I and I as the Rastafari community to look not only at the welfare fund or education fund or the legal fund, but is to invest in the knowledge as the capital. Money, yes, is there, but the knowledge and the experience of the Rastafari elders who are in Azania, who are in Africa, that how do we invest in the knowledge of our elders who are here, who I will call them the Rastafari knowledge servers. And finally, the Rastafari media. We need to focus on the Rastafari media. Why? So that we can deal with the misconception, the misrepresentation, the misinformation about Rastafari. So you'll want to create that Rastafari global network, the Lions and the Lioness Voices network within Rastafari. And for I, those are the key elements that I see. And the final one being the one of when we talk about legal, we look at this cannabis industry. Are we going to have cannabis entrepreneurs within Africa and the Living Spora, or are we going to have cannabis tenderpreneurs or cannabis mafias? Because we are going to sit on cannabis gate scandals in this continent and outside. So we need to check when cannabis become relaxed in the Living Spora in Africa. How do we manage the issues around cannabis or dacha or marijuana? How do we deal with it? Because you cannot invest on it and the money still goes to Germany and Canada. How do we keep the money within the African continent to benefit its own sons and daughters? So that is in short, that I said, once we can invest on that, and that's where we can facilitate repatriation. I've spoken about tourism. I've touched on the welfare, because most of the Rastafari elders who were living the West, there was a challenge on their welfare and health. So if we don't focus on that welfare and health, the basic creed of Rastafari, the creed of let the sick be nourished, let the aged be protected, let the infant be cared for, let the ignorant be educated. If we can cover the creed within that space, that will be able to assist I in this time. Rastafari.
So I wanted to touch on something you said, the security aspect. What does a well-funded Rastafari security firm look like in your vision? What, how do you envision that Rastafari security? Because it's a good point, because if we have business, we have farms, we have money transferring, if we have cannabis planting, we have to have a system to protect all of these assets once money and things are flowing. So what does that look like to the eye?
There'll be two ways. The issue of understanding that cybercrime, it is also the threat to investment. Secondly, we might need to go physically, like Emperor said, educated for war, but strive for peace. So if needs be, you need to have a military camps. You need to have military training grounds for the Rastafari community. Because that's what His Majesty said in 1963, that we need to have our defense systems to avoid the external interferences and threats. So within the Rastafari community, we'll create what I call the Rastafari military organizations, that it is always to secure their families, secure their communities, and also in that level, I think that will assist I.
Give thanks. What I think is so important is that we continue to have these type of discussion, because I find in our community a lot of time we stay on the history and we don't really have a forward vision of what we want and what it looks like, and what are the steps to achieve this vision. And that's what I really want to use this platform to do as we move forward. We are already gathering the Rastafari media. That's why I reach out to the IRACIFO, so the I is part of that Rastafari media. We do have the Association of Rastafari Creatives, and we are mobilizing our media under that banner as a trade association. You know what I mean? I'm very passionate about this at this time, as the item can see, because Marcus Garvey had the Negro world that he used to centralize the UNIA across borderlines. And now in this modern time, our media is so crucial to centralize the narrative and to also allow us to see ourselves, because even those of us who are on the front line, sometimes we feel like no work is being done, and there's nothing farther from the truth. There's always work, positive things that are happening, and we need to be exposed to that can inspire us. And also the workers need to connect. There might be 3 or 4 workers in each region that are shouldering that heavy load. If we can connect that 3 and 4 in each region together, then we have 300, then we have 3,000. And now we have the scale that we need to implement some of these plans. We can't do it locally maybe, but by bringing the workers from all over the globe together, I think we can do some powerful work and create some powerful shifts. All right, Dr. Chenzira, look at your bank account right now. 10 billion pound does hit. What is the I vision? How is the I allocating this resource now?
Well, first and foremost, 10 billion pounds, you say?
Yes.
With no strings attached.
No strings attached.
I can do whatever I want.
Yes.
So the first thing is I'm going to give thanks and praise to the ancestors that gift came forward like that, which means I'm going to go on a 365-day healing internal
Okay.
space.
Fear, that's fear.
And I'm just no, just to make sure, that whatever decisions are made with the ancestors and the Most High in the forefront. Because it's real quick to get that kind of money. For a
Yes.
second, while I was listening, I was like, wow, I could do this, I could do that. Yeah, I could do this, I could do that. And said, pause. And I also think about security. I'm a security person.
Yes.
So for me, I'm always navigating, because if you know that I got $10 billion in sterling, that means somebody else know. And then
Yes.
things change. So security, and when we're speaking of security, we're speaking of that layer of security within our African tradition, within Rastafari, to make sure that our mansions, our physical mansion, our spiritual mansion, and our communitarian mansions are protected. Then I went to my go-to, which is the solutions. He called it the shape of things to come. Chancellor Williams and the destruction of Black civilization. Everybody looked at the beginning part and just went through all the things of what happened wrong and what we need to do and where we need to go, and that's important. But at the very end of that book, that collection of very wise recommendations, was this list of the shape of things to come. And he went through every component in terms of a building block of a nation, not just a nation, but of building blocks of civilization.
Okay.
And that's where, when I heard that vibration, I'm not going to, shop, do some things, help some people, great. But we need to be helping institutionally. Our vibration needs to be on manufacturing. Our vibration is to be to take that natural resource in those 12 million square miles of the African continent and being able to make that resource in the continent benefit the continent and us. Very clear, very, very clear. And then my list continued, because then my list started to look at how do you provide resources for operations for these existing authentic Rastafari, ancestral African, global entities. And just, I'm sure each of us could think of 10 entities that could use some strength right now. And what would that strength look like in terms of not just the liquid money, but how do we let that liquid money serve as leverage to make it make more, to make sure that there's a sustainability. You know that word that people don't like to use all the time?
Yes.
You just want to just have it, just spend it and pour it out. It's like you just open your mouth and dollars come out. No. So I would also look at divisions of economic planning. And again, I'm not an economist, but I know that they need to be at the forefront to guide how you deal with any kind of serious influx of money and resource like that. So I would go with the economic planning and development. Then I would look at how do you engage in communitarian cooperatives. Bottom line, we need to do a survey of existing conditions. Okay, $10 billion in UK currency. How do you leverage that? What portion might you need to invest in what? Where does the Bitcoin and all this other crypto stuff kick in? Because that might be another place. And I don't know if I really would like fiat money, that's fiat dollars. I think I'd like to transition that into like land resource, airplanes, gold, train. Where I'm going, right? The whole building block. Because our issue, we would have that $10 billion in fiat, and it could be dust off quickly. So, perhaps get some gold, platinum, other things like that. Perhaps actually restore that relationship so it's not just Asia owning all the mines everywhere. It's us with our resource, with our manufacturing resources and materials and equipment, our own trucks, us doing the construction. Maybe we would actually have an institute of technology that would address some of those things. Departments of finance and banking for those people that master in all of them areas. Make sure that we have the legal framework. I'm going to leave that to you. So that we can make sure that we have everything legally up to par and up to speed. And if we have to change policies to transform our sovereignty realm again, I think that $10 billion can facilitate some of that, right? And then, like I said, we need to navigate purchasing, agriculture. Everyone keeps hearing me say these things. It's like the AAA vibration, agriculture, architecture, and the arts. Got that? So that we can make sure that these things are sustainably organized and institutionalized long term, right? I heard the portion on tourism, so I'm integrating that inside of that. There's got to be a division or an element, as was shared by Dr. Williams, in terms of political action, public education. How do we engage with those things around community services and community centers? Health, hospitals. If everybody dead, the money don't matter. So it's important that we deal with,
Crucial.
and I'm saying hospitals because that's what people remember, but we would couch that within our wellness centers and making sure that every wellness center has a farm, not a garden. Gardens are nice, but a wellness center.
Farm, yes, farm to table, because hospital food kills you. We
That
want, yes, yes,
Exactly.
yes.
And then, of course, as I mentioned earlier, around security, which implies intelligence, defense, we need to make sure that we are protected and secure in our homes, in these places that we're doing our world of spiritual attunement. Everything needs to be protected. We definitely have to make sure that we have ancestral spaces that guide us in this work and be able to facilitate the resources needed for that. All these youth activities, Pan African affairs, everything has to be incorporated in terms of that commission, if you will, of spiritual life as it's referenced therein. Building blocks that deal with, we say libraries, some say truthberries, some say collections, some say museums. However you put it, we need to have a space for our ancestral traditions, artifacts, belongings that belong to us. $18 billion, yes, definitely we'll put some resources aside for the repatriation of everything that belonged to African people that's in Europe. That's like very important to professors like me because I get tired of seeing everything that belonged to our ancestors there and there. So it needs to come out. Right, that one. And then, of course, looking at how we can facilitate the same building block principles of establishing our own governance. Because in doing this, if we're doing this through the lens of their governance, then that $10 billion won't go that far because the IRS will be right next to you. So we need to navigate how we're dealing with every single iota of every pound that we acquire so that way all of it stays with us. All. Nothing go out beyond what I pretty much so outlined here. And then, of course, I have my usual list because as quiet as it's kept, if I were to be granted the gift of $10 billion in UK currency, I sit as the second assistant president general of the UNIAACL RC 2020. So I know exactly what we would do with resources, and it would be for our people to implement that layer of African fundamentalism that Garvey, that he learned from his Imperial Majesty and her Imperial Majesty, that is part of our ancestral sacred tradition. And then perhaps I'll go snorkeling and do something.
Yes, yeah, you have to add in some things for yourself because you're
Definitely. I
right.
just do a little snorkel. Might be a really, really nice yacht, but I'm just saying, honestly, it would be about pushing through the shape. This I like how Dr. Williams put that, the shape of things to come. And he went through all of the building blocks of what civilizations require for their sustainability so that this resource can leverage and facilitate generation upon generation upon generation upon generation. And we would still be in the Einity and in the full Iris with the Most High.
Give thanks for that sound. And make sure you're subscribed. If you have not subscribed to the platform, make sure you subscribe. This is a movement.
All right, I would subscribe to the Lions. Yes, I would subscribe to the Lions Voice Network.
Yes.
Hey, for everybody.
Sponsor. We want some of the £10 billion too. I mean, I want the Battle of Ottawa animated film. I want to see it. You know what I mean? I won't stop till I see it. I want to see Haile Selassie's Ethiopia, the rise of the priestly warrior kings animated version of the birth of His Majesty. You know, I want blockbuster films about Yasantiwa. I want to see the Patrice Lumumba limited series. These are all things that we must do ourselves because we cannot wait for Babylon. There's been no feature film on Marcus Garvey. You know what I mean? Can you imagine? Who are we? Are we gonna wait for them to do a watered down version and then we go and we complain about how they watered down Marcus and have Will Smith play Marcus Garvey or whatever? You know, we don't like. You know what I mean? So we have to, as Rastafari, we are strong within the earth and we can create our unapologetic media and we can build the platforms to play that media. So that is where my vision is. Dr. Walete, check your account, please, and see the 10 billion pounds that just watch out. Check the account, 10 billion pounds. Now tell us how are you spending this money?
Yes, I.
to
Oh, well, give
Rastafari?
thanks. Oh, give thanks for that mighty blessing. You know, that is what holds I forward quite often, is the lack of resources, the lack of economics. So I am immediately investing 3 billion of the 10 billion in a construction company.
Yes.
Immediately 3 billion is earmarked for that, and 2 billion is going toward actual like a housing scheme, infrastructure, a housing scheme. Construction company gets 3, housing scheme gets 2. I'm looking at investing 2 billion into farming and agriculture.
Agribusiness, yes.
Agribusiness. So we're at 7. I'm giving 1 billion to Iritical Spaces. Iritical Spaces where all the Rastafari gather. I really think that's important, and I cannot forget to hold Sabbath and to give Isis. I believe in having Iritical Spaces for our children, for our ancients, for all of I and I. So I'm putting a whole billion into Iritical Spaces. That brings I to 8. I have 1 billion earmarked for museums and libraries or libraries, like Dr. Chenzira said. Yes, definitely. We have to have the libraries and the museums, the spaces that will remember I&I's greatness and I&I's glory, right? These institutions of remembrance. And finally, the last £1 billion will go into education, into schools. So we have housing, and I have spiritual centers, and I have agribusiness. So we have food, we have construction business to build the housing, and I have schools, and I have museums and libraries. Yeah, that's how I would spend it. I think that's what I need. Hospitals, Dr. Chenzira said she would do the hospitals. So I know they are being built. So no need to use my resources. Use your out of your 10 billion. I'm building Bingy House. You build the hospitals, right? So and Queen Mother Moses spoke about the governance and the leadership. So yes, yo boy, if I could wish that to be just much. Give thanks.
Yes.
Give thanks.
Give thanks for that. And I think these exercises are so important because we cannot attain if we don't think about it. Everything starts as a thought. And, you know, we can't, especially I and I that say word sound power. You know, we have to begin to visualize because there are communities that are moving around $10 billion to do their development plan. This is not fantastical that is not happening in creation. There are communities, Asian community, this community, that community that are moving around major billions of dollars worth of capital to create this type of society that they want to see for themselves. So this is something that as Rastafari, we want to have more of these type of dialogue. We are almost at 3 hours. We said we're going to go 2 hours. So I'm going to give our guests an opportunity to give their final closing remarks. However, I also we didn't address one of the biggest challenges, and I think we're gonna have to do a whole reasoning just on this challenge, which is the challenge of tribalism, and how do we address the tribalism in Africa as Rastafari, that we don't get lumped into be seen as another tribe that now becomes a fighting for resources, and this whole paradigm. I think we have an advantage in that the young people of Africa look up to Rastafari. We have a cool factor, or a, we're on a kind of cutting edge factor with the young people, and Africa is a young continent. So I think we cut across religion and nationality, and even the other Pan-African don't enjoy that advantage. However, with that again comes the danger of us becoming our own little section, or being seen as a different tribe, and falling into this poison of tribalism that is afflicting even Mother Ethiopia right now. They're trying to tear apart based on tribalism. So just very quickly, we're going to come back with a part two. Give thanks to everyone for taking the time, giving us an extra hour. We advertised from 5 to 7, but with these minds, the time just flew by. I want the item to just quickly touch on, and we're going to start with the Ibongo Greece as the elder. Quickly touch on how do we address tribalism, and then just give us your final remarks to the family in terms of this African Liberation Day, and charting our course forward, because again, we are just getting started on this journey. Although Mama Olete heard the sound that we're late, I've heard that sound on the continent as well. I know Rasifo can chime in on that sound that we are late. I feel it myself, but I want to be optimistic. Let's all just block a sound in terms of moving forward. Bongo Greece, give us the eye sound and your final words on African liberation. And then I'm going to let the eye close us out with a prayer as our elder Bongo Greece as well.
And as I say, in conclusion, in sealing up, it is important for the continuation of the work of the OAU to be continued by the Rastafari movement. So since we are the pillars and the vanguard. I would also like to, congratulate all my brothers and sisters on the program here this afternoon, for a very fine discourse. I would like us to keep the reasoning forward, since that together there are much that we can, there are much that we can put in place, there are much that we can navigate, and works that we can do for our people. I would also like that anytime you all are visiting Trinidad and Tobago, I personally would like you all to take you all to the 12 Tribe of Israel headquarters, where you can look at their repatriation plan. They are very, emotional about repatriation, and 12 Tribe in Trinidad is about the richest 12 Tribe mansion, I believe, globally right now. And next, again, as I say, pertaining to the tribalness, today, Rastafari, as we look at it as Rastafari as an indigenous people, we understand what is happening culturally. And we also understand that for Rastafari to be a nation, we must be a people that speak with one voice, linguistically, culturally, and ethnically. So I give thanks, my brothers and sisters, for this wonderful afternoon, on this blessed hour, on the celebration of African Liberation Day. So again, as I say, one perfect love.
And I'm going to bring the eye forward to give us the final word and the prayer as our elder. So just hold firm, Bongo Greece. Queen Mother Moses, give us the eye sound, tribalism, and your final sound in terms of this African Liberation Day and this great return. The eyes on mute, Queen Mother Moses. And make sure we can see the beautiful face. there and that cut off, please.
Okay, yes. My
Okay,
phone
go
had
ahead.
died earlier, so I
Oh,
apologize for
okay.
my short absence while I got back some fast charge. And I would like to thank the Lion's Voice for Princess, come please come get this for me. The Lion's Voice for the opportunity for I and I as lions and lionesses to have a voice, you know, and that is very important in as we talk about we don't even want to use those kind of words, but we want to deal with balance that whole and put in place. That will help with the tribalism because it's not just tribalism according to mansions or according to communities. It's the tribalism about, you know, sisters can do certain things and shouldn't have a voice and must, you know, but the balance has to be there, you know, as His Majesty has put, you know, for us. So I think allegiance not to country or political parties, but to the human beings in our communities will be how we can deal with the tribalism part. If we're dealing with each other as human beings, then, you know, is when we start dealing with political parties and country this and whatever. You know, we have to be there for each other. You understand? All for one, one for all, operating that way, we'll have success. It is Harambe time. We have to pull together. And my final words would come from my Holy Father, God and King, who told us on this day, 1963, May 25th, that we, I and I, right here today, have come together to assert our role in the direction of world affairs and to discharge our duty to the great continent and all the people that we lead in Africa. Today, they are at a mid-course in transition from the Africa of yesterday to the Africa of tomorrow. Even as I and I stand here, it is the future. And the task on which I and I have embarked is the making of Africa. It will not wait. We must act to shape and mold the future and leave our imprint and events as they slip past into history. So I and I have to be the change that we want to see, first in self, then family, and our communities. For all these words, I give thanks and the opportunity to be a servant.
Give thanks, Royal Queen Madam Moses. She is the most traveled Rastafari in the history of the movement. I said that, and a man can challenge me anytime him feel like. I said that.
Most of the local say many millionaires and maybe even some billionaires. See, a Rastafari, you know that have a name and a plane. Because, you know, as chairman club honorary of Delta Airline, I got my name on 953. And I also proud to report that I opened the airline industry to those with locks. Because when Delta hired me, they had in their policy that they did not have people with locks or men with beard. I had to change that with the credentials. You know what? So, my brother, my knows, but my own title of chief educator of my holy mother, Empress of Zion. You're over to deal with the mental, physical, and spiritual needs of our people. The balance in communication in business, you see, the masters in higher education, administration, and supervision, specialization in train the trainer, the masters in psychotherapy, clinical social work, divinity, the doctor of biblical studies, the PhD in religion, the master life coach, you know, certification at master level in 50 different areas. Ready for all we have the tools, we are the human resources. All I am come with a everything for build this, rebuild the house of Rastafari. Blessings.
Give thanks, Queen Madam Moses, and I think she was giving some of her credentials there. The Wi-Fi was a little shaky, but well qualified. mighty angel. Rasifo, give us, because South Africa is a very volatile place when it comes to xenophobia. We've seen images here of other Africans being attacked. We're disturbed by these images. But what is the fullness in terms of this issue of tribalism and the return? And then give us some of your final remarks as well.
Rastafari King, as you know, that I know we're in the third decade from the post-apartheid of 1994. In few days, there is this election or even selections, political scene that we are in. The issue of xenophobia, Afrophobia, racism, tribalism, His Majesty was very clear in terms of how to deal with, in terms of this question of racial segregation. But in Azania, we've been having challenges since 1994. And I think the worst part we had, it was 2008. But it has become the norm and the ritual. Whenever you have this selection and election period, you have this tendency of starting to have a hate towards Africans, not a hate towards Europeans, but a hate towards our African brothers and sisters. So I think as a Rastafari community, days like this, month like this of Africa Liberation Month and Africa Liberation Day, is able to revive I and overstand our role as the unifiers, because we are not dividers, we are the unifiers. We are the sons and daughters of His Majesty and Her Majesty. So it is vital that we look at even the globe. You remember Queen Moses, since the Durban conference of the World Conference Against Racism, we have not even put the Rastafari program of action how to deal with the seed of racism, tribalism, xenophobia. So I now will say to this session, it will be vital for INA as we review, we look back at the 30 years of freedom and democracy in Azania. We also look at what are the threats, what are the challenges that will also face the African living spora if they want to come down to the continent. And the issues of racism, Afrophobia, they're not only in Azania, they are broadly in the broader continent. And it's the issue of economic resources, it's the issue of greed, it's the issue of misunderstandings, the issue of ignorance. And hence our role today, as many of my brethren and sisters, you touch on education, you touch on the social relations, you touch on ancestral connection. So it will be vital for I as we are moving forward to look at the question that Azania or South Africa, the Rastafari community has been against xenophobia for many years. And I don't want to say we are xenophobic. Yes, there are some seeds, there are some irreducible culprits amongst itself, those who might not want to accept the other or don't want to accept the living spora. Mostly the Rastafari who are learned, because once you are learned also, quasi, you are a threat also. So I must also look at this question of how to deal with our social relations, how to deal with this Afrophobia and xenophobia, because His Majesty and Her Majesty condemn it, and they say that it will never build I9, it will always further this deepening of divisions. We have spoken about Ethiopia, Shashamani, you will even recall there have been challenges there. Ghana, there have been challenges. West Africa, there have been challenges. So every part of the continent will always have these pressure points. So it is upon INI in this forum, it is upon INI globally to start to tackle these things by addressing the root cause of tribalism, ethnicity, racism, and Afrophobia. And I give thanks and praises also for this time, for this opportunity to share our voice from Azania with our sisters and our brethren and our elder Bongo Chris. We hope to link up soon, because this is Africa time. Africa must unite for the benefit of its children. Rastafari.
Give thanks. And I will be working closely, Rasifo. So, I have the link now. Big up Sister Mimi, who gave the link. I will be linking. And Rasifo and I link way forward, with the Haile Selassie Foundation for Law and Society. But we just lose the link over the time. So we're coming together. And that's why I'm telling the IDEM family, when you see Lion Voice a roar, this is not no regular thing. It's not just entertainment. You're watching a people rising. So make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you move yourself from being a passive part of this uprising to an active member of this uprising by supporting I. If you don't want to support I, find some of the other Rastafari content creators and support them. It's not just I. We have ones like Priest Isaac, we have Ija Star, we have Kip Ezekiel in Ethiopia, we have Ras Sifo, we have Muta Baruka, we have so many ones that we're reaching out to and things. So make sure that a portion of your resource is going toward Rastafari Media. It doesn't have to be Lion Voice Network, although we would give thanks. But let's make sure we're funding our uprising, that we are resourcing the voices that are going to ensure that we have the information necessary to rise up. So I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Chinzira. Give us your sounds on this cancer of tribalism, and how do we navigate it as Rastafari, and then give us your final sounds.
First and foremost, it's interesting we're using that term cancer, which is a word I tend to just say C. Yeah? Okay. But it's interesting because today's South, the Abibitumi Kasa community based in Ghana, had a presentation. I want to just share what the title was that we keep talking about this cancer. Yeah.
Okay.
It's called The Successful Eradication of Cancer. I think it's powerful that today, May 25th, 2024, that we would have a presentation recognizing African Liberation Day, organized by a brethren that may have come true in the 48 contiguous US, but repatriated with full strength with his family dead and dead intact, preparing space for others to come and engage and build and do all these things we're referencing, the housing and construction and community and schools and jurisprudence and agriculture and so forth, to do a presentation led by a brethren, Van in Ghana, socialized at a particular time in life in the 48 contiguous, lived through the Caribbean, doing work, Brother Hebrew Okoriata, talking about the successful eradication of cancer using an intracellular parasite theory. It was like this kind of gathering we have here. This was like almost 5 hours of research, documentation, testimony on how we heal ourselves so that we can live for this repatriation that we're speaking about. So we can live for that same $10 billion that I love how Dr. Willette put that. All of us is getting 10 billion. So that's like 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. I feel that. I feel the
abundance. Yes.
Yeah, abundance. So my word, sound, power, and strength when it comes to that is coming from a place that has given me a lot of grounding. And that's the Anu Per Ankh. And for persons that aren't familiar with the Per Ankh, it simply is a Meta-Nature term that means the house of life. It is a Meta-Nature term that is one of the most ancestral, some people say the oldest, higher education infrastructure. I won't just say institution, because it wasn't just like school learning. That's where the physicians went to be trained. That's where the midwives went to be trained. That's where the architects went to be trained. That's where the engineers and the construction trades persons went to be trained. And the metallurgists went to be trained. All the areas were housed inside of that space that we, in our English language, would say house of life, but it sounds more powerful and it has more meaning, and they still exist in the Peranku, speaking of the houses of life, plural. So I vibe on that, and I also speak from a space of ancestral higher heights. When I hear Rastafari in English, it lets me go back to what I can find on a temple wall more than 4,000 years old in what we now call, quote unquote, United Arab Republic, but along the Hapi. They call it Nile Valley. It's a symbol that shows the effervescence of eternal life into the higher heights. But listen to how it sounds in English. Restau. What does that sound like to us? So when I hear us speaking of all of these vibrations and shifts of how Rastafari's role is to be in this new united Africa, I go to that very ancestral millennia upon millennia ago inscription that's like almost 6 inches deep in stone. That when we pull out into this current language we speak, we are speaking together. Restau, which is the highest heights of the eternal space of the what we know as a Kedisheta. It's beyond this universe. And that's what Rastafari has the potential, the drive and destiny to bring into this new united Africa. That's what I heard in the hours of our reasonings, our sharing. And then it made me reflect probably one of the few quotes I actually remember, like word for word, because it's short. In unity and love, we find our greatest strength. I'll say it again. In unity and love, we find our greatest strength. And those are the powerful words, of course, through transliteration and translation, of Her Imperial Majesty, Empress Menen Asfar. And to be able to have this type of a reasoning and to be able to visualize what we would speak of doing and how we each of us sat here and started calculating. Dr. Waletti actually had the numerical configuration of because she already prepared, right? And again, science. This is like ancestral science bringing in this vibration. I am very honored because it allows for us to speak truth to power. I invite everyone here. I keep hearing about the UNIA, and if you're not in any iteration of the UNIA, I encourage that you do that because that is an organization over 100 years old that has had an opportunity, may not be in perfection, but it gives us another layer. It's not like most of us are not in one entity at a time. Some of us are in governments, some of us are in ARAs, some of us are in tabernacles, some of us are in different institutions. Whatever is going to facilitate our ability to restore trust, to restore loyalty, to restore integrity, to restore those principles of truth, justice, order, reciprocity, balance, divine righteousness, and harmony. Like, no, 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 no. That's what Rastafari's role in the new united Africa brings to the table. And whether we speak of it for those that speak of Oludumare, those that speak of Elohim, those that speak of Netera, all the names, because at the end of the day, it's one. It's authentically one. And that way we'll be beyond tribalism. We tend to feel, that word tribe has a couple of meanings. So on the cool side, we tend to say, you part of my tribe, you part of my family village. But when we get into the tribalism that destroys our very character of our shared humanity, that's the area where functional and principled unity and the skill sets and the meditations and the trust. I'm going to keep coming back to that term trust.
Yeah, man.
But we don't have the trust for one another. We don't have respect and loyalty to what we're dealing with, then all of this is just going to be another conversation. And then our great, 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 great grandchildren will have the same conversation. What if? What's up? And that's not where we're at. It's 2024. This is an opportunity for us to bring truth to power. This is an opportunity for us to really rise up. This is an opportunity for us to live up because we need to live through this particular revolution. Not dead for this that day. We're going to live and live strong and live prosperous, right? To the best of our ability. Because you keep hearing me say it. Culture, healing, arts, technology, and spirituality. What I didn't say is that acronym is CHATS. And we know we quick to talk. But I'm talking about chats for life that have actionable deliverables. If you don't remember anything else I said, donate actionable deliverables so that everything we speak in has an implementation element. Everything we talk in, we're willing to put Everybody that's in this circle, even if it's not you that has the $5 and $10 a month for Lions Voice Network, in our circle of all the people we talk to on our cell phones, all the people we reason with in the community, we're supposed to be able to at least have a representation of our circle to come and show the strength and support for this. Show strength and support for the UNIAACL RC 2020. Show strength and support for the Temple of Inner Peace. Show strength and support. You see where I'm going? For IDOR. So
Yeah.
strength and support for EWF. That's how we begin to make this work and work well. That's why we're still talking about Garvey and not just Marcus. We got to speak of both Amy's, all of them, and the people that founded that, because they thought not just for 1914, they were thinking for millennia. So on that, I rest and
Give, give,
thanks and
give
praise.
thanks. I really appreciate of those powerful sounds, and you know the eye has to be commended so much for your style of oration and bringing that Nile Valley perspective to I and I, because I think it's crucial. Rastafari, we want to make clear we're not anti-tribe, anti-kingdom, anti-culture. We are anti-tribalism. You see, when you put the ism on anything, that's where Rastafari, we have a problem. But we embrace all of the cultures of Africa as Rastafari to I and I. You know what I mean? We trot through the whole continent, whether it's Yoruba, whether it's Hausa, whether it's Zulu, whether it's Tigray, whether it's Simeon, whether it's Amhara, whether it's Ashanti, whether it's Fulani, you name it. We are all embracing in terms of Rastafari. We love all of them because all of those cultures give us piece of our divinity. They all capture a piece of the greatness of Mother Africa. So we're not anti-culture, we're anti-ism. The tribalism, once those tribes start working against each other for the detriment or they start to war, now you're outside of Rastafari realm. So I just want to make that clear for those who are not familiar with Rastafari way of life, that we're not saying that we're anti these cultures and that everybody has to be Rastafari or see His Majesty how we see His Majesty. No, we are saying that we must come together. We stand alone. We don't convert anyone. Rastafari is not a conversion. It's an inborn concept. So it's either you're born Rastafari or you're not Rastafari. We don't go out there with gun and bomb and tell you you have to chant now your bingo, we shoot you. We're not dep on that. You know what I mean? People come to the order through the word sound. That is how this has spread to the four corners of creation. And that's how we know it's the word of truth. We never evangelize, we live. And through that living, it spread. So I just want to make that clear, in terms of where we stand. Dr. Walete, the item I've seen her so many times on this platform and it's self.
Can I please say the jazz was question?
Yes. Say something. Yes, Queen Mother Moses. You were gonna say something? The Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
But yes, Dr. Walete, I want to give the opportunity to see line up before we go to Bongo Greece. Hold on a second. Queen Mother Moses, you're saying something?
Yes.
Go ahead. Your Wi-Fi.
Of us, the teachings of His Majesty. And His Majesty says, we are all from many different tribes. It's the ism that I and I burning. Tribalism, we burn that. But His Majesty acknowledge that all I and I are from many different tribes. And we're not going to tell anyone that them cannot relate to the ethnicity that they are born in on the continent or outside of the continent. But that cannot be the way we impact unity in the ism of that. Blessings.
Give thanks. So, Dr. Walete, please just give us your thoughts on this unification. Because we have tribalism even in the Caribbean, you know, Triniverse Jamaican, Triniverse Saint Croix, this, that, soca, you know what I mean? So how, you know, talk to us about tribalism and then give us your final words. It's
You
great.
know, my sound on tribalism, give thanks. My sound on tribalism is really just the sound of His Majesty, you know, and that is the sound of, since nobody can interfere in the realm of God, we should tolerate and live side by side with those of other faiths. It's in I and I's spirituality where the tribalism comes, I believe, at least for the Rastafari. Um, you know, we're not so much micro nationalists, but definitely when it comes to the spiritual parts of I and I, that is where I believe the tribalism begins to creep in. His Majesty says, walk hand in hand with your brothers of different faiths, you know, and Rastafari is the perfect example of that, with all of the many mansions that govern within I and I's liberty. So I believe I and I should use that inscription on the walls of all of I and I's spaces, our schools, our bingy houses, our bobo camps, everywhere. We should write that on the walls. Um, the second part of the word sound was, I remember the tribalism part, and part two of the I's question was the jazz match. Part two of the I's question.
Oh, sorry. It was about just your final sounds in terms
Oh,
of
final
the
sounds. Yes,
African
sir.
Liberation Day, and,
Yes,
and you know, to our audience who have gathered with us from around the world,
yes,
just, you know, what should they be taking away from this African Liberation Day?
yes. I and I have sounded the trumpet. I and I have sounded. We've sounded the obeng. We've sounded the trumpet. We wake the town and tell the people. Right now is the time. Where are the volunteer Ethiopians? Where are the workers? You know, where are those of I and I that are going to take the lion by the mane and accept this mighty charge that I and I have been given? Right? Where are the workers? I and I are charged with repatriating and being a part of the trajectory for the new Africa. That requires infrastructure, it requires school, right? It requires conversations, government to government. And I are the theocratic government, right? And I have to speak to the leaders. Who are they that are going to go speak with I and I? I will go. I know the Jazz Kwasi will go. Everyone on this panel will go, right? The Jazz Kwasi, the I is charged as the one that has the lion's voice to send out the call. Put up a commercial, put up something asking ones and ones that are interested. We have RMO. We know RMO is interested. We have the All Mansion Vibration out of Jamaica. All of these places, Bongo Wisely over in St. Lucia. And I have to come to the table. There's Dark, there's Tron, there's Idor. So many, and I are so fragmented. And I must come to the table and speak with one voice, right? Together, I and I are strong. So put out the call, Lion's Voice. Put out the calls that ones and ones must check in. Within the next 2-3 strongs, Idor will be coming forward with some really mighty work regarding the Ghana Trod, coming up really soon. So I and I are looking for ones to come forward on that trod and to begin to realize the way forward for repatriation for I and I. But I and I are calling on all of the leadership within Rastafari globally. I and I are sounding the trumpet, reach out to the Lion's Voice. Did Jasmas Kwasi put something out there, a commercial, something, and have them come forward so that I can come together, agree to disagree, and to speak with one voice. This is the only way that I will be able to realize repatriation in a very real way. Bongo wisely speaks about it being government to government, and for the governments to provide resources to make it a reality, to build the infrastructure. We have to talk to them. Do they know that this is what I want? And I have to meet with these governments and to be able to communicate this to them, right? So sound the trumpet and let ones know, wheel and come in. We wake in the town and we're telling the people it's now. Because I are going regardless. But I would love to go, in a oneness, in an unity. A mass exodus of Rastafari leaving this region, because Babylon is sinking sand. And I want to stand on the solid rock. So give thanks for the platform. Give thanks for these words. Blessed African Liberation Day to all of I. And every day is African Liberation Day. Give thanks.
Give thanks. And I just want to reiterate Dr. Chinzira's sound that we don't know how much longer the fiat currency is going to be worth anything. So we don't have the luxury of just being willy-nilly. I want everyone to Google the de-dollarization that is currently happening right now. You have the global south led by the BRICS that are dumping US dollars daily. And they're buying gold and they're buying other assets. BRICS is getting ready to come out with a new world reserve currency. They're meeting in Russia this whole year, a series of meetings. And one of the major points is a new currency that would be used in between the BRICS members. The BRICS GDP now outstrips the G7 GDP. So I'm showing the item that there is a global shift happening. And I in the West in particular, we need to leverage the strength that our dollars have now and transition them into hard assets like land, like gold, like different things that are going to maintain value, but we don't know how much longer the US dollar is going to. It might cost $1 million for a loaf of bread in 10 years. You know what I mean? So we need to really be serious in terms of pooling our resources in the West and making this repatriation happen. All right, Bongo Grease, can the idol seal us up with a final word as our elder and a prayer so that we can end this epic repatriation reasoning, African Liberation Day reasoning. We're using the technology to go over land and see. We have our brother. What time is it in South Africa, Rasifa? What time is it?
It is in the womb of the morning. It's almost 17 past 2.
You see, so the virgin is up 2 in the morning to be with the global family, and he's smiling. So, you know what I mean? We did something right today. But we're coming over land and see. We're breaking down the division between the Rastafari community. You will see on Lion Voice, Bobo Shanti, 12 Tribe, Orthodox. You will see all of the spectrum, Naya Bingi. We're breaking down all of these barriers. This is a platform for Rastafari and Pan-African. We are non-aligned. We are independent. We are funded by the community, for the community. So we definitely just give thanks. Bongo Grease, please just give us a final sound and
again,
final prayer.
yes, again, as the corporate secretary with all mansions of Rastafari in Trinidad and Tobago, give thanks on behalf of my membership and all brethren, because the all mansions of Rastafari in Trinidad, is an umbrella body of the 12 tribe of Israel in Ayabingi House, the Bobo Shanti, African Unity, and other unaffiliated Rastafari mansions. So we give thanks for the coming together. So we look forward today as we celebrate Africa Unity Day for the unity of all Rastafari groups, all Rastafari entities. The time has come for I to put aside all petty differences, and look at the bigger context because our children need us. Our children need us. Our society need us. You know, I mean, look at the social structure of things within our community. We can no longer hold on to, our ecclesiastical corner and see our children are being lost, or see our children lost. We now have to use our spaces to see how, as Rastafari, we can save our society as the vanguards. We have a responsibility to the welfare and well-being of the whole community, not only to Rastafari, but to all of our people. So we give thanks this day, for the wonderful discourses by, the elevated brothers and sisters of the Rastafari faith, because as you know, many are called, few are chosen, and it's always a chosen few, the laborers are few. However, we give thanks for all the brethren and sisters out there that have the heretical strength to remove the light from under the bushel and come out and let's save the children today. So we give thanks, to each and every one who claims say and per Pauli, the sacred name, highly I, Selassie I, King Rastafari, and Empress Mai, and I, Harambe, one perfect love.
Give thanks, family. And family, remember that the time has come for the lions and the lionesses to tell our own story. And this is the Lion Voice. Eli, Selassie I the first, King Rastafari, Almighty
This is Michael Shemaya representing. I will say, Hail Lion Voice, saying it is time for the lions and the lionesses to tell their own story. King David killed Goliath with a stone, we original dread.
The fittest of the fittest shall survive. My people, open your eyes. Wake up. Blessed love, this is Queen Omega representing for all lions and lionesses. With the lion's voice, we come to tell our story. Rastafari, live it. Hey, the lion's voice. Rastafari.
Well, Lion Voice, tell them that's the people first choice. Lion Voice, make the lioness them feel nice. Lion Voice, with the lion cubs we sacrifice. Lion Voice, got to show the people them the life. Lion Voice. Yeah. And it's last said the first.